And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 51st episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Matty Allen, with ChrispyMan of HEXFire.io, Brisology, and our two special guests tonight, Ben Kayge and Big Kurkowski. Welcome.
Hey.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey guys, what's happening?
So, Ben Kayge is one of the most up-and-coming Hex streamers here in our community, so we're very pleased to have him on. Everybody hit the like and subscribe button for that. And then we've also got Big Kurkowski here, who maybe can give us some insight into lots of really cool stuff when it comes to mining. He has a history of being a miner, and I don't know, maybe there's a movie update. So yeah, I'm so excited. It should be a great show.
Yeah. Glad to
Your
be
mining
here.
experience is better than mine.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I'm so glad we've got so many new miners here. It's fantastic. It's
Right.
I just started mining the other day, so
I
just started.
Personally, I like to smurf myself.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I keep I keep trying to stick with mining. I can't, man. I keep saying the wrong word, but keep saying stick.
Part of me loves the homage to some past world I existed in. But yeah, it's a little different. Just a little different.
I still like staking. I'm gonna keep calling it staking. I don't care.
You know what? You can call it whatever you want, man. That's the great thing about decentralization. Nobody's going to stop you either.
That's right. That's the greatest part about it being decentralized. You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah, I liked Hodl Dog's tweet when he was like, I hex, and then I unhexed my hex, and I hex more of my hex. And I'm like, that works too, man. Sounds great.
Can we call it squanching?
Yeah, you can squash the shit out of it.
Oh, that's disgusting, Kurkowski. Come on.
Squanch it.
I like publishing. I just like that as a concept. There's no catchy phrase. There's nothing like, stake it till you make it. But yeah, publishing is cool.
I'm gonna be completely honest. I really think the phrase that I really like the best is to claim your stake. Not to stake it, but to claim your stake. And I think that kind of goes back to the Oklahoma land rush, where people were just going out there and staking, claiming their stakes of land, and then they can come back to it in the future, and boom, there you go. You have your reward. And it's almost like the same exact thing, to where it's like, hey, I'm claiming a stake, and I'm going to come back to it when the stake is over and get my rewards. So I think that could be the phraseology, is to claim a stake.
I like that. It's pretty accurate to the situation too, I think.
I think so.
I like it. I like if everybody just throws as much shit at the wall as they can, and then like the people who are the regulators trying to parse through this have to actually learn the system to realize why it's different. So that way, you can't just be pigeonholed into one term or another. So I think everybody should call it whatever the hell they want. By all means.
True.
And it's very different than the other types of staking that became popular, where people are sending coins to a centralized entity, and what's referred to as staking as a service is something completely different. And so it makes sense that regulators would try to clean up the space when it comes to people giving away their private keys to others and not really understanding how bad that is. But I guess Celsius and BlockFi and FTX and all these things have been good learning opportunities for people.
I mean, it's crazy because it's like they haven't, those companies taking the term staking and then using it as what they were, is like them usurping because there was, when there was masternodes before, you staked your coins. There was other coins that it's not like Hex wasn't the first coin to use that term, you know? So like, and those ones, like when you staked on a masternode, like you had to be running your own server to validate transactions, you know, that was part of it, you know? So like, I mean, it wasn't nearly as, there's a lot of differences. It wasn't nearly as much of a lockup, you know, like you didn't choose a time, you could just lock up usually and take it out whenever you wanted. But like you still were doing it yourself, you know, like that. It wasn't until other people came along and created, you know, these services or, you know, pools that like made it so that like there's some gray area there. I mean, until then, I was like, I mean, even I can't remember the coin, but there's this like what Sprouts or something that was like this coin that was just inflated to a bajillion, you know, and like that you still staked it, you know, it was still part of the system, and you did it on your own. Like, so there's going to be some clarity over the next few years, and ideally there's some people who like people on the right side who are willing to fight for terminology to be, you know, properly used.
It's going to have to be. I think it's especially when looking at, you know, some traditional finance or some of the institutions getting involved and to what will essentially be more of a recognized asset class. I think that there's going to have to be some differentiation. I'm sure they'll come up with some creative subcategories and manage to compartmentalize that in ways that kind of make sense. But right now, I guess for us forerunners, I mean, we're just happy with the returns, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was talking to a couple of folks who are kind of some of those more creative fund managers, let's say, and they're looking into that. And I'm not sure if anyone listened to what I said on any of my previous streams, but just hearing them talking about some of the ways they're looking to kind of capitalize in crypto and a lot of node operation and a lot of kind of, you know, staking, I guess, that they're able to leverage themselves, and it's not really going to impact any of the tokenized kind of assets that they have. And it's super interesting. So I think that like part of me is loving being in cowboy land where we can kind of keep doing what we're doing and not be regulated through the floor. But the other side of that sounds pretty nice too. If we do have some more order brought to this category, I think a lot of that big money coming in, being set up and being early is definitely going to pay dividends in the future. But I should see a lot of capital coming in, and just these folks realizing that, especially with all this decentralization, they can make some big money themselves without necessarily putting it at risk for, you know, the folks that are buying their ETFs or their assets or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely think that that's, you know, that once we get over some of these hurdles and there is some clarity, then that, you know, every time that we do this cycle thing where there's like unknowns, you know, unclear situations, and then we find some sort of regulatory clarity, or the market finds some, you know, coalesces around some ideas that are good, you know, then there's room for more of the money to come in. There's plenty of money sitting on the sidelines waiting to look and see how things go. You know, people with lots of money typically are like at least somewhat careful about what they're investing in, and if there's some sort of clarity for them, they'll feel at least a little bit more comfortable, you know, moving more in.
Yeah, look at Kevin Leary, for example.
And then some people will be right and some people will be wrong, you know, and like I'd just like for some more people to, when they make, like, the hardest thing about crypto is losing some of your ego and realizing that like you're gonna be wrong. This is all happening right in front of our faces. Like it's even Richard's like, you know, yo, listen, I like anybody who says they know exactly what's going to happen is out of their minds. This is like an experiment unfolding all in front of us as we're all part of it, you know? So like you got to be more fluid with it than dudes like that are.
Yeah. And
be willing to take your L's along the way and be like, I was wrong there. Yes. You know, I've been very wrong before, you know, that, and only you can't be right until you admit that, you know?
I think the situation we're in now, it would be very, very bad luck for all of us to be wrong about this particular ecosystem, I think, especially all the stars seem to be aligning, huh? I mean, just listening to, I think I was listening to, who is it, Brian Armstrong? Is that the CEO from Coinbase?
Yes, sir.
Some of the stuff that he was talking about, just, I guess that the US being in like this inflection point where we can continue being a political powerhouse at a a global reserve by just updating our financial system with all things crypto. And that's kind of like on the heels of this ETF, like tokenization stuff that BlackRock's doing. That's probably going to open up some floodgates there. And I just think that, if you happen to be, a well presented layer one, not let alone the DEX and anything derivative that comes from that, just being a well positioned layer one right now with a nice community behind it, it's going to be tough over the next couple of years, unless you really mess things up, to not be appealing to a lot of this money coming in. I just think, like, especially if you're, similar to an Ethereum, kind of riding the coattails to a large extent, but you're also faster and, potentially a lot cheaper for a lot longer. I'm excited. I mean, I'm sure everyone is, right? Maybe it's such an obvious thing to say, but just listening to some of these folks that I know, from some of my financial background, folks who are still very much in that world, and it's not a tough sell. They don't need such a tenured, layer one to be excited about it. I think that I would be making some assumptions before, thinking that they're going to need to see, years of being in the market. And there's a little bit of that, a trust factor that's earned by like an Ethereum, for instance, but just being part of those conversations. And obviously I've been trying to, pitch this whole Richard Heart ecosystem anyway. But those conversations are a bit more organic than I was envisioning. So that alone to me is kind of like an exciting thing that, especially anyone now, even anyone within the first year or two of getting involved in a Pulse chain or certainly in HEX, I think we're going to be reaping some major rewards from a lot of this, financial, all this capital, this revenue pouring into crypto in general.
Yeah, there's a lot of capital out there that's waiting to go into these layer ones. And I think we're in the perfect storm. I think we are in the asset to be in that is, it's about to launch. And I'm going to tell you something that I've kind of realized in the last maybe year or so that I didn't realize when HEX first launched, is how much like clout and like money and kind of like pull Richard really has. Like, the dude is freaking rich as hell. And it wasn't until his outrage marketing thing that really came to fruition, because like I had no idea, like he has $280 million at his disposal, like just sitting in a wallet. It's just there, whatever. If I knew he had like that kind of money when he launched HEX, I probably went. I would have went even harder at HEX, but I went very conservative.
That's a good point.
Maybe you wouldn't have fighted so much.
Yeah.
That would have pushed it off. Well, Bruce, right? I think maybe Ben or Big K, you guys have been around longer, but this is my third beginning of a bull, right? So we're at the end of we're at wash, rinse, repeat, right? So we're at the end of rinse, and it kind of feels like we're getting ready to repeat.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to me, I think I said this before in a previous video of mine, where it's like, if you're watching any of these streams now, if you're in this world, if you are paying attention, you have no excuse. You can, nowadays we've got enough experience, even on the screen right now, that folks can learn from previous mistakes. And I've made a lot. Talking about mining, I lost a lot of money importing machines from China and putting it into a South American country and having the government take it all from me. And it was just a mess. I mean, it was nowhere near as streamlined as it is now. But like, I've learned those lessons, and I've gone through the ringer a few times now. I'm probably the newest to HEX out of everyone here, which I'll hold my hands up and say that, but I still see it as a fantastic asset. And you were looking at, you mentioned earlier just the money that Richard Heart has. And it's kind of interesting to me that a lot of people, especially folks not so maybe experienced with like traditional finance, especially, but when I hear people saying, "Oh, he has all this money, when's the rug pull going to happen, or when can he run away with that money?" There is literally no need for him to do that. There are so many like financial vehicles that he can leverage his wealth and still see probably an even better return, right? I mean, if you're leveraging nowadays, you can leverage any kind of asset if you're creative enough, even just things like a life insurance, right? He doesn't need to sell. He's done, when he's talking about wanting the glory. a lot of folks don't understand that, but it's interesting because the financial folks, the guys in traditional finance who are maybe a little bit slow on the pickup of crypto, they do understand that. So that's not a risk factor that they're necessarily as scared about,
Okay. Let me throw this at you. Let me ask you if you think this has something to do with a lot of people just have not experienced sudden wealth syndrome, and so they don't know, they don't understand what the hell you're talking about. Like, there's really a situation where somebody cannot liquidate everything they have. Like, if you're the day-to-day guy, you just don't get it.
Yeah. It's
Good
completely
point.
true.
I
think
don't know
that
if you
anyone
think
who has
about that.
a ton of
Yeah, I
money,
mean-
they don't need to spend it. They don't need to save it. They need to put it to work in as many creative ways as possible. And he's in a perfect position to do that. So if we were him, if we had any common sense, and he's a smart dude, like if he's doing the right things. And so I think there's a lot of unwarranted fear out there that, I think that he's too big to do a lot of the shady shenanigans that some people are worried about.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, for him to the rug pull Hex and Pulse Chain and then just expect to go on with his life. No, he's going to have to pull a Quadra CX and pretend to travel to India and get cremated.
That's not the documentary that's coming out.
And then I just want to,
But there is one about that.
Yeah, it's good too.
What's the name of that? Highest of Minds? Is that what it is?
Highest of Smurfs.
There's some good
Smurfs.
ones. Some good rebranding.
Yeah.
I just want to add on to one little thing that Ben was saying. Is that Ben? You said that you're probably the newest streamer out of all of us, but I for one welcome you, and anyone that's watching this that they're like, oh man, there's all these Hex streamers. I don't need to do it. What? Get a Hex stream. Start making a stream. Maddie Allen will teach you how to be a Hex streamer.
Or
Yeah, I mean,
people who are in the Telegram for Hex YouTube. That's I so far I've been really delegating that to other people. Not really delegating, but just like, it's a Telegram space where anybody can join. Like, if you're newer, you're usually sharing tips with others, just like we were in the early days.
You rugged us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing. I mean, and we've seen it with Hex websites, we've seen it with front ends, we've seen it with a bunch of stuff where things can come and things can go. And that's, again, the beauty of decentralization is there's always room for a new voice and a new angle, and there's always a reason to do it. It's not. I mean, I applaud everybody who comes after us and decides to take it up. Because there's, I can remember early on being like, man, we've been here for a year and I still find incredible things to talk about, all the time within the system. Before Pulse was even a gleam in our eye, and I was impressed by that. Like as Richard puts it, the speculative stickiness that Hex has, it really has a lot of depth to it, and on many levels, whether we're talking about the game theory of the tokenomics or the effects it has on people making better choices with their lives. I mean, there's so many different angles we have, so like I'm always like stoked to hear another perspective of it, especially somebody like yourself that gets in, Ben, gets in later to Hex and to streaming and still finds value and understands the system and then brings their own side to it. Like, I mean, that takes, I mean, when there's a whole bunch of, I mean, we're a super fervent community. So when it takes a certain level of huevos, cojones, whatever you want to call it, to come out and do it yourself, unlike the and I respect that and appreciate that from everybody who does, so. I mean,
same. I've watched you all. Honestly, I am. It's brought great value to me, and the reason I kind of wanted to start my own community, if you will, was really to bring. I felt like the Hex community in particular seems to have or it seemed, I mean, this is a generalization, but it was very crypto heavy, and there wasn't too many serious kind of folks to begin with, right? That were talking maybe from a background that was in traditional finance or some of those more traditional business avenues. And I was like, well, the value's there. Like, there are plenty of people out there who have that experience and and the HEX community is saying a lot of very smart things. Like, there's a reason this community seems to attract smarter people, I think, because you have to look under the veneer of typical crypto stuff and start really finding value propositions that actually make sense. And to me, it was, I come from a VC background, and it was very, very similar to me. It was similar the way we used to, or still do, kind of look for diamonds in the rough a lot of the time, or even just new innovation and technology and setups and structures and leadership that makes sense. And to me, HEX and this community has all of those things. So I was like, you know what? I want to start. I talk about it anyway with my networks. I'm like, you know what? I want to start talking about it in a bit more of a public format, because it's something that everyone should understand. And I think that that's only going to get stronger. A lot of these other folks who maybe even come from similar backgrounds, maybe, the fund managers, for instance, that seem to be a big part of my network. They're the ones that are going to probably be bringing over, large money. And so I see it as being inevitable that they will understand and they will want to bring that over. And so it's interesting to me, and it's exciting, super exciting.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Something that's been going through my mind recently, right? And a lot of other guys may have already been thinking this way. This is not just, so there's a point when you get into HEX and you get in deep enough with this and you're thinking about it, this is not just another cash and paycheck thing. This is actually a movement at some level, right? And the movement is to create a new monetary system, and it's hard. It's hard for people to get their heads around that, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, it's it's a different way of looking at things, because so many people want to change the system from within, and what we're doing is just building a parallel thing. It's not like we're actively fighting other fiat systems or something like that. It's mostly like this is something that is also here too, that's great. I mean, like, there should be other options, and that's one of those things that is always funny to me when people go and say, like, oh, there's going to be one that's eventually going to win, and you're like, oh, because there was one currency that won, of course, right? And no, it's not, because there's one soda that everyone likes, so there's one restaurant that everyone likes, it's like, no, people love variety. I mean, that's part of what makes life great, and so acting as if we're going to be the only game in town, or anyone is to me seems really short-sighted. So like I see tons of value here and tons of value like going forward in just the ideas that we present to people. I mean, like, and we've seen plenty of cats pick it up and take it in unique different ways, and I don't like actively promote a bunch of other projects, but even within our ecosystem. But I mean, I think that there's some unique value adds that have come along from what we've already gained and knowledge we have from HEX and what they've built on top of it. I mean, there's I mean, even the fact that you see the rest of the industry copy lots of our ideas, in almost real time. I mean, when we went from HEX being this fringe thing to the DeFi summer, where like everyone's staking and looking for yield, and now, like that was in my mind, I was like, oh, we're obviously on the right path here because we're blazing the trail, and from the the VC standpoint, we also have that mentality of like, oh, well, nobody knows about it and we're still laughed at in a lot of ways, so like we're still at the bleeding edge to some degree here on what people fully understand, and like you said, as more people understand it, it'll become a little bit less of a mysteriously kind of thing, because you see, I mean, even BitBoy even recently is still just like, I don't understand it, and you're like,
come on. Really?
It's going to be interesting to see how that narrative changes once it's launched.
That's the perfect moment to freeze. I'm thinking.
Yeah. That's perfect. So Big Kurkowski's frozen in the perfect position here.
But he was right about that Bitcoin BitBoy
I'm
thing
back.
where BitBoy was like, I still don't understand HEX. He's like,
Yeah.
shut up.
I mean, if he's trying to take the general public kind of perspective on things, I get it. He's trying to talk to that crowd, but that shows that there's still a ton of opportunity there, and until everyone's like, oh yeah, that's a thing that everybody knows is reasonable and should be invested in. I mean, then when you're gonna get all. I'm not saying we can't still gain interest in everything else with X, that's still a thing, but like. Oh, there is an adoption curve top somewhere. I mean, once there's hundreds of millions of people involved, just like, Bitcoin or anything else. So like we're still super, super far from that being a reality.
Yeah, so far that I would argue that, not that we're far from growth, but so far from whatever that max is, we got plenty of room to grow, man, for years, decades.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's really about whether or not the system works properly, works as expected, works as designed, and whether it's a good design. And it all measurements show it is.
I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I'm sure everyone's been watching some of the stuff that Axis Alive has been kind of doing the TA wise, and he's really great at it, and I'm so happy that he's a part of this community too. But it takes such little volume to move because of the way that the liquidity is structured. When you mention that we're still early, we definitely are. I mean, like when it doesn't, the money that's out there sitting on the sidelines is more than what is available to purchase right now, and so as everything starts growing, obviously that diminishing returns will kick in sooner or later, but we have a long runway ahead of us before that happens, which is crazy to me. And it's so funny when people think about, are we going to see a $10 hex? Probably faster than you think too. And it's like, some people are so bullish about it for all the right reasons, but then when they start making price predictions, they illogically kind of curb their enthusiasm because they think a lower price point sounds more realistic. The chart doesn't give a damn about how realistic you're trying to be. It is what it is. The liquidity squeeze is real. AMC did the same thing. No one thought that was going to go up as much as it did, but the same kind of parameters were in place, except even now it's even easier to move. So yeah.
100%. I can agree with that. That's I mean, people, when Hex started out, I can remember being like, man, if we ever in the next 5 years get to a penny, that will be incredible. My mind would have been blown, and then now it happened way sooner than I ever expected, and you have to at some point in time you got to evaluate your perspectives on that, and like at this point in time, like as far as price calls and that kind of stuff goes, I'm so wildly off every time that I'm just like, people throw out numbers and I'm like, I don't know, probably higher.
Yeah. So you don't get to be usually a number 11 crypto based on market cap and still have so much potential ahead, that so much obvious potential. And the way that I square those things is that Hex really has done a lot with a small number of network participants. If you think about getting to 100 million, which is the amount of participants Ethereum has, I mean, when we get to 100 million stakers, that's about 1,000x from where we're at now, 100,000 to 100 million. And so just the magnitude of that jump is going to be so big because of the math of it all, because of the network effect parameters and the automated market maker, the fact that Hex trades on a decentralized network and doesn't have a founder that's been dumping so far and doesn't have a huge amount of VC that was in from the beginning and that sort of thing. I mean, I think it's really going to blow a lot of people's minds.
I mean,
once it gets there.
I mean, we gotta go. I always go back to like the narratives or have they changed? Like no, they haven't. I mean, and like early on, one of Richard's like, why even Hex? Part of it was his want to show people how ridiculous market cap as a vanity metric truly is. So until we've like destroyed that top 10, and like made Bitcoin, our bitch. Until that happens, like we still have a long way to go, because that's the goal. That's like what the intention is. The intention is to make everyone reconsider in their minds what matters about market cap and why it's even a useful metric. And until it's almost comedic, like, oh my gosh, it's 10-20x the market cap of these things that are supposedly the top of the echelon here, then we're not done. We're not done. So
is it a useful metric?
it's it's
a used metric,
like I
right?
said, it's a used metric. And what Richard, like what I think HEX does in a lot of ways is, it hacks that metric. It's supposed to hack that metric. So like, yes, on the charts, it's the number 11 market cap crypto, but we could go way higher than that. We could make number 2 be a distant somewhere way in the back, and you'd be like, wow, we're twice, 3 times as big as number 2, before people are like, oh my gosh, this metric doesn't matter. This is a huge, this is something that needs to be a force that needs to be reckoned with, and we should probably change our way we look at things. Yeah. And so until we do that, until that's like obvious for not our community, but for like the rest of the crypto community, I still think there's an insane upwards trajectory that we got ahead of us. Otherwise it's, we like, Richard would be wrong about that one, and I don't think that we would be. I think that that's part of the beauty of it, is that it's really meant to, and that's why there's been so much, over the years, whether this site doesn't want to track the market cap this way, they want to exclude these coins, they want to, they want to play with or around with it as much as they can to fit it in the narrative that makes them feel comfortable.
There are bigger lists than just the market caps of cryptos, right? The gold isn't on that list. There are other lists. I definitely want to pose a question to the panel here, and maybe kind of tailor it to each of you. So I think I'll separate it out by the guests and the regular participants here. But it has to do with the topic of Richard changing up his public relations. Okay. And so for people who maybe are not glued to Twitter, right, that's like the mentally healthy thing to do is to set it and forget it, right? And we know Hexicans don't always do that, and that's okay. We like participating, we like keeping up to date. But the founder of HEX, Richard Hart, has done a 180 in his public relations just in the past week, and he went from being extremely braggadocious and really trying to outrage people to the point of outrage marketing and being talked about even in places where it's banned to talk about HEX because he was wearing such outrageous clothing and doing things that just upset people because they thought, oh, he's spending other people's money and blah, blah, blah. There were all these false narratives. And it goes back to Big K's point about, there's a whole like speculative stickiness to just, kind of how Richard presents himself. But, I want to hear maybe from ChrispyMan and Brisology, if you guys could break down like the history of the progression. And then I've got a couple questions for Ben and Big Kurkowski when it comes to like how this relates to their fields. So ChrispyMan and Brisology, have you guys noticed a difference in Richard lately?
No, not at all.
No, not at all. Actually, I took it pretty much in stride, right? I mean, like, I've been around for a lot of phases, and hey, listen, he's a soldier, man. He happens to be the general, but he's like, he's doing his thing and he's doing what he thinks is best.
I like the switch up. It's kind of he feels a little bit more humbled, I guess. I really didn't like the whole PP talk. I really didn't even like it when he was just talking about chicks, because I was just like, Richard, be careful. I don't want you to get me too'd. And then all of a sudden the whole project comes down because, people make up a lie or try to Andrew Tate him. Right. So I'm happy to see him switch up to a much more humble method of talking about himself. But at the same time, um, I also it just feels too much of a 180, and it
Uh,
almost feels disingenuous, to tell you the truth. I mean, I don't think it is,
hmm.
but it's just kind of like, you know, he's just going from like a look at my watches to like, look at my baby pictures. Just like,
Yeah.
I'll throw this at you, Bruce. I definitely see your points, right?
yeah.
I'm not a very good chess player. I can't play 3D chess, and I certainly can't play 4D chess, but I recognize when I'm seeing it. And there's a lot of things going on in the background. So,
It's he is definitely doing game theory for sure. This is like he is literally doing game theory. He's like, all right, I am making my next move, and he's placing
well,
his things on the chessboard.
what always makes me think about is this, is right. So I do have to kind of isolate myself out a little bit from the entire environment, what's going on, and everybody's feelings and thoughts and everything, right? Because I understand some of the stuff and why people feel the way they do. My wife looked at me a little funny. I still talk about 14 pulses. So the that's the kind of stuff that shows up right out of those dreams. But I was here listening as aptly as I could for as many hours as I could between 2017 and launch, and then beyond. And I kind of see this IQ test taking place over and over again. And the idea that, there's a lot of things that some of us don't want to say out loud about how it is that assets get value and how they depreciate in value, right? People buy and they sell. That's what happens. I mean, it's no secret, but nobody wants to hear about it because they start screaming, well, that's not the way things should work. But if you look anywhere, that's how it works. Anyways, the point I was going to get to is wash, rinse, repeat, right? If you can't believe in HEX and the way it works, when the guy that you think is the leader, maybe you think is a leader, is acting the worst, you get washed out. And wash, rinse, repeat.
And the last thing I'll say about it is, I really, one of the things that really attracted me to Richard and Hex is basically the way Richard spoke. He just said, hey, if you put your hand on a hot burner, you're an idiot. Like, don't do that. Learn from your mistakes. And a lot of people were like, did this guy just call me an idiot? What the heck? I don't like that. You can't call people idiots. And I think that's kind of what got him in maybe a little bit of trouble in the beginning with Hex and the whole crypto community in general, was that he was a little too brash, and they just didn't like it. A lot of the community, not to get political, but they had a very liberal mindset where you can't hurt anyone's feelings, and Richard was out there hurting people's feelings. With that said, he's now taking it back. Looks like Pulse Chain is going to be coming out pretty soon, and maybe he's going for a much more softer approach, which might be a lot more beneficial for everyone that's sacrificed, because it might attract a bigger crowd over being like, fuck you, I'm right. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Perfect. That gives us a great context here on what's been happening and what the history is there. And then Big Kurkowski, can you tell us, like, how does this play into like the Highest of Stakes documentary? Not specifically just the term staking changing, but like Richard's, I guess, PR changes. How does that play into like anything with the Highest of Stakes?
I mean, if we're trying to go for some Tiger King of crypto shit, then his outrage marketing fucking fits the bill, So like got to remember the intentions of what he was working on at that point in time. So like, you know, I get why like you want to come at that angle for some reason. You know, when you're marketing, you know, yourself to a bunch of people you've never heard of, there's who's never heard of you. You know, there's a quick way. You know, it's like that you could. It's a lot easier to get attention by being loud and flowery, and then eventually come with the goods, you know, because he came with the goods for a long time for all of us, and like, you know, he had insightful information, things that help people to change their lives, you know, self-help stuff, and like he told you straight up that I would get more likes and views if I did keyword reviews, you know, and you know, so like he like that wasn't that angle and that direction isn't what works, you know. He got a lot more likes and follows and all the rest, and you know, over from the outrage marketing side than expected. Because I mean, when Hex started, I think he had like what 50,000 followers, and now he's got 300,000. So like, I mean, it's changed a lot, and he was around, you know, he's doing his thing before Hex was a thing for years, you know. So like the soft approach didn't get him to that next echelon of, you know, the 250,000+ user echelon. Not to mention, if you have, you know, like I said, if we, you know, from a producer standpoint, like, you know, yes, show us the things, be the craziness, you know, please give us the goods, you know. So like, you want that, like, I mean, somebody who's like, I'm humble and meek and reasonable and everything else isn't going to be as exciting on camera, you know, for that side of things either, you know. That, so like, there's I mean, I can understand all those, like the direction that he's taken and all of it, and I mean, I don't like, I'm fine with most of it, you know. Like, I'm not like here like, oh, that's so terrible, oh, this is so bad. I mean, even the parts that are cringe for my wife to watch or whatever, like, you know, I mean, part of that's cringe because I'm just like, like, money demon girl, come on, like, you kidding me, man? This is the stuff you're gonna talk about on the, like, it doesn't make you look like you're that great at whatever. Well, the point is that like, I see where the, like, why he's picked these like angles to take, and where he's tried to, you know, make inroads in different ways. He built a community based on the good things and the great information that he has to give, you know, and then he took that community as close to the promised land as possible before, you know, the market said we're done here, and then you know, with a shift for the reasons of promotion of himself, for the project, the movie, all that kind of stuff, he made some I mean, it's tough to be an asshole all the time, you know. I'm sure it's not fun to be that person, you know, in public all the time, you know. It's fun to stunt on some people sometimes. Everybody likes to do that, and when somebody would come at Richard and he'd stunt on him hard, that was great, you know. They were asking for it, but like, for a while he was actively pursuing that, you know. So then now you make the change to, you know, to a meeker side, but then come with goods and information again, and he'll probably over the next year or so gain another 200,000 followers, you know, and like, that's great, you know. So I mean, like, I've learned almost everything that I know about marketing from, like, not just Richard, but from being a part of this community and this project. Because like, I'm a math guy, I'm a mining guy. I didn't know any of that shit. I didn't even know that that's what I was like when I got on a live stream at first, you know, and was like, hey, I'm here and whatever. I like Hex, you know. I didn't realize that what I was actually engaging in was becoming a marketing arm of the project, you know. I didn't realize that. I was like, entirely, you know, I found that out through, you know, talking to other Hexicans on live streams and in chats and everything, and like realized what's important here and what we're actually doing. You know, like, you can have a great idea, an amazing product, but like, if you never leave your basement with it, then no one's ever going to buy it, you know? So, I mean, I'm fine with it all. I think that this is great change. You know, I can see where, Bruce, what you're saying, that like, you know, because Richard's the kind of guy that when he does something, he does it like fully. You know, he's like, we're time to make the shift. Okay, we make the shift. It's not a gradual shift; it's a shift. You know, it's a,
Frozen. We'll see if he comes back. There's
But yeah, like you're saying, it's a it's a straight break of norms where Richard just kind of like, like Richard used to just, sitting on his throne, and he had like, his HEX shirt, and then all of a sudden he's like wearing Gucci and Louis Vuitton, and he's putting up all this stuff around him, which was a very sudden change.
If you made that
Yeah, that
statement
was-
of anybody else and said they were sitting on their throne, that would be like an insult. This is real, right? So it's like,
well, it's so funny even because like even when it's all for stuff because like even when Richard's like, yeah, this throne, he's like, this isn't even that comfortable. I had to use this pillow here and whatever. It's like, it's you get what he's doing. He's got an angle for it all, and he chose that chair because it looked good.
Big K still in Puerto Rico?
he's coming
God,
live from
what's
Puerto Rico.
What's wrong with my internet?
Elon has
sorry,
been spending
Jess,
too much
sorry.
time on Twitter and not enough time on Starlink.
Yes, what's up with that? Starlink fucking. Anyways, yeah, I mean it's all good. I think it's it's all intentional, and but not always for his utmost comfort. Whatever he's doing, it's not. That's. But I mean, I don't think that if you stay comfortable, you make nearly as much progress as if you work for it.
Let me ask Ben here. So what's the VC take on outrage marketing versus being more wholesome?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think a pivot was probably needed. Maybe he's seeing a lot of the same aligning that's happening with the wider world, right? A lot of macro events happening that are kind of aligning all other areas of finance with crypto, and so it's probably time to switch gears and start appealing to some of the bigger money out there. I think he probably, you had the initial kind of Kim Kardashian approach, throw a sex tape out there, then start kind of toning it back a little bit and making it a little bit more kind of palatable, but yet still kind of like at home with the Kardashian style. Maybe I'm not completely unconvinced. That's not part of his personality. I don't know. I mean, some of the things you see him wearing, and maybe it's all. I mean, I'm not the person, obviously, that's going to know more about his actual mentality there. But I'm sure that he's a smart dude. I'm sure it's all done purposefully. Maybe he's leaning into a part of his personality there that he wanted to indulge for a little bit, as well as kind of leveraging it. But I do think, again, I got hooked on a lot of his early stuff too, or a lot of his smackdowns, like you mentioned earlier, because he's a smart guy, and that's the kind of, his candid approach and his kind of, in hindsight, a lot of the value propositions or a lot of the issues with like crypto in the past look obvious once he said them, and he has a very good way of kind of, not just saying it, but then putting his money where his mouth is, or his time and energy behind it, and bringing it to fruition. And all of that played into me buying in, and I'm sure a lot of other people as well. Then that phase of kind of veering into talking about his PP and all of the watches and stuff, it's like, it's fine. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I'm also going to look past that because I see the value of like everything else, right? I do think that a lot of people would probably struggle to look past that, and it is a tougher sell when talking to someone who's a little bit more serious. You think about a lot of the traditional finance heads out there. You have the creative kind of younger fund managers that are a little bit easier to go down that path, but then you've got the older guys that are not going to fall, or not going to. It's not going to resonate if someone's coming out, essentially, it look like appealing to kind of the younger teenage crowd, get ripped in 6 weeks type of like pitch. I don't know if that's necessarily going to work with a lot of those more traditional folks, but he probably sees that too. He squeezed blood out of a stone on that outrage marketing for a lot of what he's done. And it's interesting, being mercurial, being able to start leveraging all of these different types of markets is definitely a creative kind of way about, of going about things. That in itself is interesting, and probably a story from a marketing perspective of how this guy was was able to kind of play to all these different demographics. It wouldn't surprise me if going forward, it was a bit more kind of on the serious side of things, not in a way that detaches completely from the stuff that's resonated so far, but toning it down, laying a lot of the knowledge down in a bit more of a palatable way, and just presenting himself as really what he is. I mean, he's a very smart guy who's bringing attention to a lot of really useful things. He's bringing solutions to the table that no one else thought to bring. He's put his money where his mouth is. Like I say, he said he was going to do something. He's brought it, and it's been a hell of an interesting story along the way. That's more appealing to a VC person, for instance, who, the first thing that we would look to kind of analyze is, right, aside from all the obvious, the leadership team. I mean, the leadership team in this instance, pretty much because we don't get the transparency with a lot of the devs and things. It's Richard Hart, right? Who is the leader? And then it's the community. And so that community is always going to consist of, the demographics that he's playing into. And I think that as we start venturing into probably a bit more of a big money world into crypto, when we start seeing a lot of, I think the US has to jump on crypto in a much bigger way. I think that they, they're going to get left behind, especially if they want to stay ahead of, all things reserve currency and all that stuff. They're probably going to have to come out with their own token and kind of own, on-chain and off-chain currency. And so, as all that happens, and as banks start being able to kind of streamline their entry, and as companies too, private corporations, investment houses, all those folks who have a lot of money to play with, that's the kind of crowd he needs to really pander to now a little bit more. So I see the pivot, and obviously I have no idea what he's smart, way smarter than me, so I'm sure he has his own plan there. But it just would make sense to me that now we're already a part of the community. Now we're anything that provides pumpermentals for us. If we understand, some of us that bigger institutional money is around the corner. It's now being, it's a smoother path forward than ever before. We have a crypto landscape that can now take a lot more activity on it. We've never had that before. It's always been kind of institutions dipping their toes in the water. Yeah, we'll have, a couple of funds kicking off and buying Bitcoin and whatnot. That's, that's an old hat now. I think that, these guys are going to be looking to, and I know personally, some of the folks that I know are looking for more creative ways to leverage the crypto world. That's going to matriculate through crypto wide. A lot of that money is definitely going to come to HEX. It's going to come to this whole ecosystem. And so he's got to know that. And it's exciting that he does know it, and it's exciting that he seem to be making these. I mean, and we don't have a data set now that shows us such a massive pivot that's probably here to stay or not, right? We've got a couple of days or weeks of him putting out slightly different content. For all we know, he's just he hasn't drunk for a couple of weeks and and he's feeling a bit more clear headed. I don't know, but hopefully for me, I really hope that it's a narrative that kind of he plays into now, just so we can start positioning for some other people to join the ecosystem, because it's only it's really the
right time for it, because you got to figure what the whole point. We waited through a bear market. We waited, whatever you want to say, this bear market, and now when you come through the other side of it, a lot of shit is gone and doesn't exist, and we're still here, and not just here, but the dude was right about a lot. Almost all of his warnings were like line for line. You can draw an exact line, and from his warning to the destruction, the downfall of several large institutions in crypto. And it's now you were right. You got to rub it in, and so now when the landscape is just barren wasteland, now you get the chance to be the voice of reason and go back to, hey, those principles that I was right about, here's me talking about them in depth. And let me give you some actual knowledge bombs about what I was talking about before, now that you're finally fucking listening, whether it be because you're listening to me because I was right or because there's nobody else to listen to. Either way, you've got everyone's attention. And you can see that. I mean, you can see big names just even recently, talking, trying to spin their angles of shit talking that, about him still, old Simon Dixon or the cat we were just talking about or whatever, they're all spinning their angles on it. But the point is is that these are people like Simon's is one of them. They're like, wouldn't have even mentioned Hex by name a year and a half ago. Wouldn't have ever even, you know? And now they're like forced to come up with their own narrative on like why they disagree with it or why they don't like to. And like, that's great. You know, like I'm happy to, like, as Richard has said, like if you're talking about Hex, great. If you like it and you're talking about it, great. If you don't like it and you're talking about it, fine, we'll take that too. I don't care. Like I don't care either way, you know? So like, I mean, it's great to see that like these people still have like whether if you thought your viewpoint was going to be enough to like get people to forget about it, no, it's not the case. You're gonna have to, you know, sharpen your sword again and try and come at us again, you know, because there's all like and what a better time, you know, than now for us to be in that position when, you know, like we were saying, it seems like there's a new spring dawning on this market, and there may be some better days in the future. So, you know, positioning ourselves was great.
The interesting thing now, and I'm from a marketing background too, so we do, you know, my agency, we do a lot of kind of, I guess, crisis community, corporate comms, and all that kind of stuff. To me, now is the time with all these kind of bigger macro catalysts taking place, and now that we have enough kind of, you know, proof points from just how capable he is at predicting things, now is like, in my mind, white paper time, right? Now it's time to start putting out some traditional kind of white paper-ish thought leadership, authority building types of, and I know he's not, you know, he doesn't have a PR team. He likes, you know, he does things a bit more of a playing into the current crypto atmosphere a little bit more.
I think he might have a PR team.
Oh, he does? I didn't
But,
know. Okay.
but regardless, right, Ben, that can be our job.
Yeah, you're right.
Self-inflicted, right? Because, and I don't mean that anybody gave me that assignment. I'm not the guy to do that. But you sound like you're the guy to do that.
Well, maybe, yeah.
You know,
It's a little tougher though when, I mean, it's always a lot better coming from the horse's mouth from a journalist perspective. I mean, if you're looking to infiltrate some of the financial times of the world, right? And there are plenty of crypto, you know, now, you know, media outlets out there that would probably jump on that regardless. But having a bit of gravitas coming from the man itself is going to add a lot more, you know, a lot more impact, I think.
Well, I don't dispute that, and I wasn't going after just, you know, like sound bites in terms of marketing and communications on that end. I was thinking when you started mentioning things like the like white papers and analysis and thought leadership, so of course Richard's a big part of everything, and I don't want anything to happen with him, and I don't want him to go away. But he has always said from the beginning and kind of laid this down that it's up to us to go make this work if we want it to work. And so, and everybody, you're doing that right now. I mean, you're doing that in some other ways, and everybody on here is doing something like that, you know. And so, anyways, what I was thinking about that is when you're talking about this, you got some really great ideas. There's some things that you probably have some experience with that would be like not heavy lifts for you, and we have the information.
No, it's probably true, and I'm sure I'm not the only one out there too. But yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably going to be the case. Even as I was talking about earlier, with a lot of the small sample set of fund managers that I know, right? A lot of their creative plans going forward that are possibly looking to, you know, include this ecosystem. Obviously, once it launches, it's gone through that initial litmus test, and we actually have a living, breathing ecosystem that, you know, we can start putting stock in. But yeah, I think that I mean, I think a lot of this will naturally happen anyway. I think he's done a pretty good job of cultivating interest and passion within his community and kind of putting us to work, which is great because so far it's done really well for everyone in the community. So it's definitely not something that anyone should be resentful about because it's
absolutely,
it's fantastic. But yeah, you're right.
And I don't say it as negative against you. That wasn't
I didn't take it that way.
But what we're seeing, and I think we've seen, is that everybody's doing different things at different times, and that's actually great for grassroots, right? Now, I can concede that if we were a corporation, which we are not, and if we were a single organization and we're not, then you would centralize all this stuff, right? But there are people it's like when Axis picks up the mantle with, you know, on trying to onboard, you know, whales. I don't mean whales only, I mean whales, right? Whales. Like new whales and bringing them in and new sharks, right? The idea of how do you help those guys, you know, And then, and Maddie with his streams and Briz with taking over the ship on Friday nights, right? Anyways, I digress.
Yeah. I mean, a dollar cost crypto, apparently, it's rumored, onboarded one of the Genesis ETH guys who put 1,000 ETH into Hex recently in the past week or two. So it's just incredible to see, the decentralization at work. And I do see it both ways, that, it's our job to make the decentralization work. And it's also really cool to have Richard participating and playing along as much as he is. So
yeah. I mean, it's like I have gone back and forth with this, especially doing streams regularly and having a wife and family and everything else. There's like this, like, do I have to, kind of thing. Like, no, I don't. Like, I think Hex would have been just fine if I never, showed my stupid face on its screen.
It's definitely better for it, though.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but I feel like I look at a lot of things in life like this, especially when I'm cleaning, like doing some shitty shit, like cleaning dirty diapers or whatever. Like, I get to do this. I get to be like, be able to be a part of this. I feel like super lucky and blessed to have been where I was when I was, to like have the balls to come on stream and be a part of it. Like, I didn't have to. I think Hex would have done just what it's supposed to do without my existence ever, or any one of us here without, it still would have gone up a lot, even if DCC wasn't onboarding crap tons of people, which he's amazing at, or anybody else that has been doing that. Like, it still would have found its way. It might have taken longer, or it might have.
Keeps freezing in good places, though. And Roddy's about to make a point. But Maddie, I guess
we'll look back on it very like.
Oh, there we go.
With great joy. We'll look back on it and be all like I do already. I look back at some of the previous stuff whenever we get a Hex the rewind that comes out. I'm just rewind. Like, oh man, being a part of all of that has made it's increased the my happiness in my life a lot beyond just like the money or whatever, like the financial well-being. It's really cultivated a great feeling inside of myself. So like I'm regularly feel like I'm lucky to be able to do what I'm doing. So and getting to hang out with y'all is awesome. So appreciate it.
I don't watch regular TV anymore. I watch Hex streams.
You can watch enough of them.
It is interesting, Maddie, what you said earlier about, kind of making decentralization a thing. I think that, that's obviously the revolution that crypto was meant to be, right? And I was already bullish about this. Then we had those kind of catalysts where, Gemini, Kraken, FTX, all those kind of more centralized entities started having issues and shenanigans happening, which played even heavier into all things decentralization and the narrative going into the next bull market. And I was super gung-ho about that anyway. But now we have, a lot of this, following on the heels, like I say, of a BlackRock, the ETF, and that kind of being made available, albeit outside the US, but on a decentralized exchange, Uniswap, and inevitably the tokenization that's going to follow that. I think this now, kind of before we go into, I guess bull market summer, and then further on from that, I think that this is all about positioning. And we are positioning ourselves as a decentralized go-to in advance of all of this. And so this is, I don't think people understand how bullish it is. I saw someone in the comments just now saying, I'm just waiting patiently for a 7-cent Hex. And it's like that's inevitably coming. And that's going to be a very long memory in the future to come, and you don't have to wait long. There's not much patience that's going to be needed there. It's just going to be holding on tight and understanding how right now we're positioning very, very strongly for so many of these kind of macro events that are taking place. We're going to be reaping the rewards, and it's awesome. That's what excites me. I'm like, we're yes, the money, but we're right now positioning ourselves to be a part of something that is like, it's a revolution.
Hey, let me throw this at you and see what you think about this. I believe that Hex is very well positioned to accept many multiple sharks and whales into the system with I think we can do it. In other words, this is what I'm trying to say. If I was just thinking about people coming in liquid, I might be worried about different tokens and coins that are out there and getting stuff sold on my head. But with the staking system, it occurs to me just from observing like this last big guy, watching the Godwill, some of the others, that staking system just keeps on trucking, man.
I totally agree. And I'll tell you why. So first and foremost, I guess now HEX was already a great store of value, right? And will continue to be a good store of value. The derivatives coming from that and all the different platforms and tokens are only adding a bit more stabilization in my mind to HEX in general, right? But now we have this vertically integrated ecosystem that not only offers a great store of value and probably in a streamlined, tax efficient way as we start exploring that for these big entities coming in, these big money bags coming in, it's also going to facilitate easy, cheap, fast chain interactions and engagement, which if you're looking, and this is of course what's going to happen, right? A lot of this big money is going to come in. They're going to look at Ethereum, understand the tenure that's in place and say, hey, you know what? That's, aside from Bitcoin, which is really not engageable, aside from buying it and keeping it, we have Ethereum that's been around for a long, long time. And in the grand scheme of things, right, relatively speaking to crypto in general. Now, that has proven to be, especially when Shanghai comes out, it's going to be a little faster and cheaper anyway. And so we have an ecosystem there with Uniswap, with Ethereum that's going to no doubt be the first stop for a lot of this new money coming in because it's been around for a long time. What's the next stop they make? Well, if you're looking at something that is essentially a fork, it's riding the coattails of an already established chain, and it's essentially copying it, making it more, probably a lot cheaper, probably faster, not the fastest on the market, but it's so similar to an Ethereum that it has a store of value that's already kind of locked into its ecosystem. Well, that's looking very appealing then, because the folks that I've spoken to who, their first initial thoughts into this world are all really based around, like I say, setting up new asset classes, on node operations or around, other kind of delegating profit in different ways. Well, they need an integrated system. They need to not only capitalize as they usually do with an ETF or whatever it may be. It could even just be a stock. It could be a real estate fund, whatever it may be. Right? You can tokenize anything. Then with some of this derivative action that's taking place with HEX or the close link with anything that's built on a Pulse chain, it's a cheaper, easier way to capitalize 2 or 3 or 4 times. And so I think a lot of these funds, as soon as we start seeing, a bit more of a proven track record of not just, the mining, staking, whatever we're calling it, but a lot of the derivative plays after that as well, that's very, very appealing. And probably right now, a tax-free way of not just storing funds for these, not just making these vehicles available for other people to invest in, but it's also a great way of storing your value, seeing what will probably be a consistent rise in your capital's value because, inflation's crazy. You don't want to put it in dollars. You don't want to put it in other currencies. What are you looking for? You're looking for a crypto, a Bitcoin, stable coin's going to be maybe if
You froze.
Oh, I froze. I'm still there.
Oh, better.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. So my point being is that this vertically integrated atmosphere that they're coming into could provide not just the vehicles, not just the facilitation of these vehicles and asset classes to take place, but a great way of storing and increasing your value in whatever your profits are or your funds value, and then capitalizing again from derivatives that come from that. And so it is very, very appealing. And I think that it to me, provided we can get out of the gate strong, Richard Hart is making sure that, well, what appears to be anyway, providing he's not just purely timing the market, doesn't look like that. They're perfecting the product so that when it does come out of the gates, we're not wasting time with bugs. We don't have any of those kind of, he puts his stamp on something that has the Richard Hart stamp of approval. It operates flawlessly, hopefully, and it takes a lot shorter time to start positioning itself as the next go-to. And I think it can. I really think it can. We have a big enough, strong enough litmus test in HEX right now that store of value is half the equation, I think, for some of that big money.
I want to make sure that. Oh, go ahead.
And you're right about the integration stuff, the vertical integration. There's just so many things that because the community is so strong, that are being built on, for Pulse and that like need to be there, and they're not even being built by Richard, whether it be different wallet solutions, whether it be, forks of other very successful projects that are, that offer this what you're saying, ways for people to leverage crypto in different ways. I mean, there's the fiat famous stuff that looks fantastic too. That's that's like allows people to use there's other billions of dollars that are running through the Aves and GMXs, right now that like are super important, like and the fact that like that doesn't have to be all built by one cat along the way is incredible, so like that it shows the strength of the community, the resolve of people to build these things on top of this platform, and like the leg up that we're going to have on day one to have these things ready to go, like that shit's it's incredible, really. I mean, there's not an ecosystem like that has that kind of community based, there was other blockchains that came out with a lot of things built on very early on, but most of it seemed pretty like it was, Solana stuff was all the same group of people basically creating most of that stuff, so like you really have a lot of redundancy and everything too, by whether it be multiple front ends, multiple systems that are all going to be doing the same thing. Now there's Power Cities building stuff for PulseX too. That the other liquid, like they want, there's a lot of shit being built. There's just a lot. Like, I mean, it's hard to even name everything, and that are actual super useful tools. So like I'm really stoked about that. I mean, like you said, as long as on day, Richard does a great job at making sure that what comes out is right. He does not want to have to, backtrack and work out bullshit that after the fact. That's real difficult in general in blockchain, let alone what we're doing. So I'm super bullish on all that stuff. I mean, that's what makes it so much fun to be a part of the community. Is before you know it, there's whatever the latest greatest over here is, we're gonna have a version of that we can use. I mean, that's super strong for HEX.
I think too, like, I mean, even from a retail perspective, right? Even without looking at all this big money coming in, even just from general consumers, we're going to be, it's going to be hard not to be the story of the next bull cycle. And people love green candles. So we're going to see a lot of people just piling in anyway. There's a lot of money. The way I got introduced to HEX was because I literally saw friends of mine, and I'm talking like 6 friends of mine who made, 4 of them made tens of millions of dollars from HEX, and a couple made significantly more. And I saw this transference of wealth in front of me, and even these guys. And it's super interesting to me hearing Axis speak as well about a lot of this stuff, because they're sitting on the sidelines right now looking to get in at a higher price point, because they're looking for that kind of they're looking for price to consolidate at a higher level, so that they don't price themselves out when they buy in. And you think that a lot of big money, that a lot of those folks are waiting for that too, because it doesn't make sense to a lot of people who look at this and think, wait, wouldn't they want to buy it at smaller amounts? I mean, they could incrementally buy in at smaller amounts and not price themselves out of the market. But that comes with a little bit more risk, really, in the grand scheme of things. If you already have tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, you don't need to capitalize as on every cent change in the price. And so I think anyway, without even looking to appeal to a lot of this bigger money, we're going to see some massive interest in this ecosystem just from the folks, the early adopters, really, that are already in. But then, it's hard not to get completely pumped about the rest of the world aligning for this launch. It seems like so many things are coming into place, with Starlink becoming bigger and bigger and bringing people to the ecosystem potentially, to crypto, who all they need is a smartphone. They don't have bank accounts. They don't have access to all of this stuff. But these are all like millions and millions of users that have the potential then to come to crypto because they have free internet. People don't really think about the massive effect that can have, but it really does.
It's going to be huge, man.
Massive, yeah. It's going to be pumped now. I'm seeing in the comments someone's getting pumped. I'm like, me too. Been pumped.
Well, crypto has always had this history of duct taping things together, and Bitcoin being spaghetti code is like, that's the tradition that everybody went after. Uniswap, didn't integrate their fees with their token. They just duct taped on a token, but they didn't have the token itself have the tokenomics built in to where the more people use Uniswap, the more the token can appreciate in value or have a buy and burn, so to speak. And so this vertical integration has nobody's ever tried that before in crypto. Nobody has given it, this good of a try. And so just to see the architecture and the planning and the brilliance of it all is it's really exciting to people. And I think it, no matter how excited you are, it's there's going to be a lot of disbelief that happens. Now, I did promise people in the thumbnail that maybe we'd talk about this topic of Pulse Chain soon, because that's what one of Richard's tweets said recently, except instead of being 2 quotation marks around soon, it had like it was unclear if there's a typo. There's an asterisk and a closed quotation mark. So maybe the panel here could give their opinions on, are you burnt out about talking about one Pulse Chain? Do you think it's, are you DMing a dev right now that it's going to be any minute? Where do each of you stand on that?
I mean, you see him making more, like, I wouldn't call him pointless, but like, what's the word for it? Like little updates. He's giving us these little updates that, like, before. I mean, he's telling us at what point they're syncing on Erdogan. Like they've done a bunch of syncing before. They have 3 other clients, that are already running the test net. So like they've done a lot of that already, and we didn't get every single update along the way, but now we are. So like either that means that we're really close, or he's really reaching for something to tell people. But I mean, it's somewhere in between there. Like I appreciate some more updates. I like that, but it does feel like with where we're at. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's already done. He made a list of it. One of his tweets recently was just like all the list of all the shit that's ready to go on it. So like the checklist is mostly checked, folks.
Yeah.
For me, I hope it takes a while. I like this being accumulation mode for me. I mean, I'm a little later to the game in the grand scheme of things when it comes to HEX. So I kind of see the writing on the wall when it comes to HEX. So I'm trying to get as much as I can. So I have a feeling it's coming in May. I mean, it would make sense in so many different ways. I think I can't remember who it was who said that if it actually comes out in May, he's technically not wrong about the launch date.
Yeah,
just didn't say what year it was. So I kind of like that narrative a little bit. But
I do love that meme a lot. That narrative is great. I think
I made that meme with Richard and Hexologist with the Star Wars meme where he's Anakin and Padme. Like,
I mean, I remember that and thinking like, when you made it way like months ago, being like, you're like 2023, and I was like, no way. But I've been so wrong about that. Like I can remember a month after the sacrifice being like, he can't hold on to all this money for that long. It's 2 months, 3 months, right? That's all it could possibly.
Well, one of the biggest things about
predictions aren't my thing.
Richard, he's like, hey, look, I launched a finished project. I'm not asking for money and building it. He built HEX, and then he got the adoption amplifier. So I think a lot of us kind of thought, Pulse Chain was also similarly done, and we were just going to have the sacrifice phase, and then boom, it was going to come out. I mean, I think that's kind of like, I don't know if that was the impression that we all had, or if he gave that impression, but I remember that's kind of that was my initial thought. And then 6 months later, was it 6 months, where he has the party at in London? I'm like, oh, dude, there's no way he's gonna have a party in London and not launch Pulse Chain. I mean, why else is he having a party there, right? So I've been wildly wrong about my, dates that I think it's going to come out. So when I see soon in that little asterisk, I kind of look at it like those medical commercials where it's like oh, you're going to be perfect if you take our pill with the asterisks, but there's anal bleeding and all this other like side effects. You're like, what the hell? So with that little asterisk, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of it's soon trademarked.
Soonish.
But it feels right around the corner, right? But again, to me, it's always felt right around the corner. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think
Software is hard.
Sorry.
Software is hard. It could, Ben might get his wish, to everybody else's dismay, but it also comes down to how patient you want to be, and I would rather have software that is light years ahead of everything else, or getting things right for the first time, than the alternative. But I've also said that if Pulse Chain fails at start, then that's going to be such a juicy buying opportunity. I'm probably going to sell all my streaming gear and like go to like streaming off my phone or something. Like
with all that said, though, I kind of agree with Ben. I wanted there to be a more delayed launch as well. I think it kind of helps get rid of some of the weak hands.
I think it has. Yeah,
it does both. It gets rid of some of the weak hands that have been here too long, and then it also does this other thing. Like if you don't forget about that day one hex. Like he tried to compensate for the FOMO that there was, but like even him being like, don't need to buy the first day, guys, and also trying to double what was in the AA that day, wasn't near that still didn't even hold a candle to the demand that there was at that point in time, Yeah. And so like if you don't believe that there's going to be insane demand, yeah. I mean, there's going to be some insane demand for it. I mean, you can tell just in the ramp up of wallets from Pulse to Pulse X Sacrifice, and then how many people are new here past that, so like I'll be very surprised, come launch either way. But I do think that there's a lot of people waiting to be a part of this system.
I also think that the further this thing goes on, then the further we get closer to kind of bull market summer, right? And then that typical dip that we see usually with projects like that has, we have either we avoid it or there's a significantly softer landing than what we may have. And so there's a very good chance. And of course, you hear this all the time in crypto, and then lo and behold, trading mentality seems to take over and that dip comes. But with this, there is, with Pulse Chain, there's a good chance that the price kind of runs away from a lot of people, let alone Pulse X, that I think, in my opinion, will maybe start out of the gates a little slower, that still do very well, but still come out of the gates initially a little bit, slower than Pulse Chain. But then with the best tokenomics that I've ever seen, I think that snowball effect continues to run and run and run. And with all the last year and a half, almost, however long it's been now since those sacrifice phases, I think that we may have already shaken out a lot of the weak hands that probably were relying on a quick turnaround, and they've been forced to find solutions to their temporary problems, right? Or, whatever. I know for some people that must have been the most inconvenient thing ever, but in the grand scheme of things, they could be counting their lucky stars that they didn't have to cash out as soon as possible. And so if they now, as a result of that, are able to allow themselves a longer time frame, which they should, I can't imagine selling out like a 10x. I think that would be one of the stupidest things anyone could do, right? But people won't understand that, and I think that now people are maybe in a bit, or more people maybe in a situation to hold on for a lot longer because they've had to get around their problems, a different way.
Whatever you're doing, you should have a plan for sure. I'll throw this to you. I don't think we'll launch until September or sometime after September, somewhere between then and December. Now I'd be very happy.
What are you basing that on?
I'd like to see it happen tomorrow. It'd be great. We're still waiting for V3. A reasonable back of the envelope type of thinking is V3 comes out in a couple of weeks. We need 2 or 3 months to see how it works. If there's anything that needs to be fixed, we're going to have broke fixes. That might take a little bit of time. So it gets us into the September time frame. Wouldn't be terrible if it happened, but I do want it to happen tomorrow. So I just want to point it on my button. I really do want it to happen right away. But
I made a tweet, and I think this is a good narrative that we should probably start taking. Is that because Pulse Chain has taken so long to build and develop and come out? I think we can really legitimately say this is the Bentley or the Rolls Royce of blockchains. And I think that's kind of a narrative that maybe we should start to promote, is that this is like the Rolls Royce of layer ones. It's not going to be like a soy Lana that keeps going down every other day
Yeah.
because someone launched an NFT.
Hopefully. I mean, ETH 2.0 is working pretty great. So, that's a good thing. With
Except
the
for we're not
energy-
even in where the gas fees are about as expensive as they were in bull market times. So that's
yes, yeah, and they don't dip as hard. Anecdotally, I can say that I've noticed that they don't dip as hard as they used to when the miners were participating, and that's kind of interesting to me. But
yeah, I mean, you can't you used to be able to put like a 10 Gwei transaction through, and in a day or so it would go by and it would get caught. But it ain't gonna happen now.
Yeah, you got it's 20 Gwei typically if you're willing to wait.
If you're willing to wait, that's high.
Yeah,
I can remember staking in Hex, and it like if it was 10 cents to do a stake, I'd be like, it's too much. I'll wait till it's only a penny or two.
wow.
So yeah, it's wild how that's changed. I mean, I remember during the bull run being like, the only thing that pumped harder than Hex was the price of gas and Ethereum.
It's interesting to me when people start questioning whether we're going to get significantly impacted, after Shanghai, and what's going to happen with X, Y, and Z happens. Are we going to be too late to market? And I think it's all irrelevant. I think that there's enough to go around anyway, let alone when you come into the market with a fully fledged, product that works. I think it doesn't really matter too much. So I'm personally not too concerned about how late we do come. Obviously, it'd be nice to have a long enough runway before the bull market fall to start kind of really looking at really capitalizing on the whole thing, so we can see some real good price action. But I think it'll be the story. I mean, we've heard a lot of people say this, and obviously we're all believers of this, but I think this really will be the story of the bull market. I can't think of anything else that's coming. I don't know if I'm just not aware of it, but that has such a huge amount of buying pressure ready to go as soon as it comes out of the gates. I think we haven't seen anything like it. I'm super pumped about it. But September, it's interesting. I think September for me is a little further than I would think, but hey, who knows, right? I think that we've all been surprised so far. We thought this was a couple months away at most, and it ended up being significantly longer. So I guess we'll see. I think it'll be funny if it comes out in May. I think that would be playing to his ego a little bit too, that he wasn't actually wrong about this whole thing technically. But I'm excited either way.
Yeah, I'm expecting like a end of the year launch, but I bet you it's gonna come out in the next month or two. I'm prepared. All right, maybe 2024 is the year. It's gonna come out next weekend.
Well, does anyone here think that there's going to be a big gap or any gap at all between testnet and mainnet?
I mean, 30 to 90 days. If there's no issues. If there's no issues, I mean, I say 30 days because whoever's testing on it and developing products on it really would like that, I'm sure, but in the 90 days is, what I think would be the maximum amount of minimum wait time that he would put on it. If everything's working fine. If there's issues, then,
I'm voting 7 to 30 days because of the extensive amount of private testing. But I don't know anything that I would agree that if something went wrong, then that would significantly delay things.
That's one area that I have no expertise in at all, the development side of things. So they could literally tell me anything. I'd see a tweet from Richard Hart telling me the flux capacitor was broke, and I'd be like, okay, yep, makes sense. Yep. So yeah, that's interesting. No, it's always good to hear anyone who has a little bit more development experience or a little bit know-how as to how those things play out. And that's I see a lot of that private testing kind of taking place too. So hopefully they're ironing a lot of those kinks out behind the scenes, which would be great. But yeah, I've got no expectations there.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
Now, what about the documentary, Big K?
What about it, man? Let me tell you, I'd love to have some good updates for you. I don't have any updates per se. I don't know. Nothing yet. We're still like right now. They know that they're working on speaking with OTTs and talking about getting, who's it's going to go to. And so we've had a few meetings on that and what we believe. I said my biggest sticking point has been throughout everything. The more eyes, the better. Like I'd take, less whatever financial, recompensation for more eyeballs. So, I mean, that's where I'm at with it. But I don't have like what I've learned a ton about movie making and movie selling and all the rest through this process. It's a tricky game where you have to, like, I don't get very much information because you basically, the way it works is you hire a sales agent that that believes in your thing. It's like kind of synergistic. They have to believe in what they saw, and you have to like what they're selling, how they sell things, and then that person talks to all the different networks. And when people are like, I've got a contact with these guys or that guys or Netflix or whatever, like you can't actually it's not like I can call them up and be like, Nick, let me freaking show you this flick. It's not like that at all. You have to go through those channels for legal purposes. Just if somebody came up with an idea that was eerily similar to ours, and then that another network released that and passed on our movie, then but if you have a sales agent involved, then you can't, then they can do that, but if there's not a sales agent involved, then there's, did they steal the ideas? Is there what legal footing are they on? So there's a lot more. I mean, man, when they were finishing, when we were locking in the sales agent, I mean, the amount of paperwork that had to go into I'm talking every sound in the movie has to be proved. Like the sound of a door shutting or something has to be proved and cited and sourced that we own the rights to that sound.
Yeah.
I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pages on every single fart and sneeze in the movie. And that's like, oh yeah, that's our fart. That's our sneeze. It's all legit. It's all as ours. So it takes a lot to get to that place, and we're there, and we're in the shop zone, and we're and I hope that when we that soon I'll have more updates for it. I mean, I cannot wait to tell you all, hey, click this and go to this, and y'all will be watching it on your smart TVs or whatever. And I cannot wait. I'm at the edge of my seat for that.
It strikes me that the game theory that's playing out here with the movie is that the longer it takes, the more people who are going to be enthusiastic about crypto. I think I see crypto as being in a kind of a local low, and maybe on a bigger scale also, maybe we've already seen the bottom of this cycle. And so imagine all the upside of people already being excited. The people who are in crypto have more money to put into HEX because their crypto is more valuable in 6 months from now, a year from now, than it is currently. And
for sure.
and the sentiment is just back to bull mode. That would be the type of environment where releasing a masterpiece would really create that that huge synergy, and that really
I'm totally
huge
on board
effect.
with that. That's my preference.
Yeah, I like
that.
that. I like that too. I mean, like, it's tough because, like, as somebody who worked on it and is like, so, I mean, I poured a lot of time, energy, effort, a lot of resources of mine went into this. I mean, and when we did the London thing, I pulled out all the stops and had hired a lot of the good, people to make that happen too. I mean, I did a lot for it, and like, I want it out like now. I mean,
and we appreciate you doing all that work for us, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It was definitely it's an awesome labor of love to be a part of it. But I want it out now, and I would not time any markets, but I will say that that if I take like a perspective, if I take a step back and I was like, how could this be perfect? There is a part of me that would love a call to action of like, oh, hey, this thing is about to be released, or it is released. You go here. This is the new thing that I would love for Pulse to be out or close to it. That would be great, because like, you're gonna have the eyeballs of all these people, and like, having them be able to be a part of, like, now you can also engage in this and be a part of this whole thing would be amazing. So like, I'm not. But no, we're not trying to time anything out. No, we're not like working with Richard. I have no idea of any of that side of things whatsoever. And it's like, he doesn't have any idea, just as much as I, or not, as far as when it's going to come out,
So it may accidentally come out at the perfect time.
It might accidentally come out at the perfect time. That would be fantastic. I'm so like, that's what I'm hoping for super bad. Like, and that's something that also, whenever it does go somewhere to somebody, and then, then usually when it goes to a network, OTT, then they usually have their own plans. They've got like their own, they're going to launch these movies at these months, and they own this stuff, and they have a plan for what their marketing is like, So part of our wishes in all of this is to push it as fast. Like, we're like, what we want, is for them to fast track this. We would like this to be out within after it's sold, the 90 days, if we can, as soon as possible. We want it out, because like, everybody they have to be able to line up their marketing team and be able to give it the right, air that it needs to look good and everything else in their platform, and be launched at the right time. But like, some networks can buy something and just shelve it for a while, and we're not interested in that. So
that was my question too. In everyone's mind, is it mandatory that a network or a platform picks it up, or is there the possibility that maybe there could be more juice squeezed from this thing if it was, released on a YouTube or something like that, right? Where obviously the shareability goes to another level from the community, right? But then I guess the organic traffic and maybe the gravitas that comes from a bit more of a network effect could be. What's kind of the preference there? I guess. Obviously that, right?
There's all different layers of it. There's like, you want to get it, like I said, for when I got involved in the project, I was like, I don't really care about the returns. I'm mostly interested in eyeballs on the project. That's what it's all about. So like, it's really difficult when a lot of these streaming networks are have 50, 80, 100 plus million active users daily. Like, we're not going to hit those numbers on YouTube. We're not without insane marketing budgets outside of that, so like, it's not to say that it couldn't end up like that, but I don't think, like, first of all, I think it's way too epic of a like flick to like end up like that. This is really, really awesome. It's definitely deserves to be on one of the top end platforms, and then from there, it's like, yes, the next, if you wanted to, you could take it to like film festivals and awards, that kind of thing, and do that circuit too, as well, which is a big circuit and gets a lot, like, whoever usually gets it from that gets tons of eyeballs on it too, So, but like, I think that mostly the you want to be able to reach these viewers that we can't really reach. I mean, a lot of people that are looking at crypto and are poking it around on YouTube has probably come across one of somebody's Hex related streams at some point in time, you know. Whereas like there is just a massive amount of people that like I go through these streaming services now and I look at all the documentaries that they have on there. And like, first of all, I have a hard time. I mean, I like some documentaries, but like I have a hard time finding anything that's going to compete with us. Like I have a really hard time finding that anything that like has the storyline, the feel of everything, the sheer amount of money that Hexicans also helped out to put up for some of these amazing shots and like cool things that were done. It's going to be really hard to like find anything in that documentary category that really like. This is more of a movie to me. It's really not. It is a documentary, but it's also more of like just a movie, you know. So I feel like it deserves some high acclaim, you know. So I mean there's other ways we could do it for sure, but I think that the you know, this is the best way. And I think that involved in all of that too is we do want to do some like in-person, you know, launch release events too. So like there's going to be an opportunity, I think, for Hexicans along the way to be a part of this launch, you know, in person too, which I think is super cool. I mean, red carpety stuff is fun, you know. It's fun, and it's something, you know, that whoever wants to really feel a part of it can, you know. It's possible, you know. So that and like me is, you know, y'all know me to some degree in the sense that like I love event planning, putting things together like that, getting people together for awesome experiences, and like I'm super looking forward to that. So yeah.
Exciting.
If I could just shamelessly do a little plug really quickly, because it really refers back to what you're talking about, Big Kurkowski, is I was on the Green Day Power Crypto Show, and they just released an episode today, and we did a movie draft where we all picked 5 different movies that was in the financial / business sector of the movie industry. And that was really fun. So if you want to go and find some like really good like documentaries and movies to watch regarding like money and crypto and stuff like that, go check out that Green Day Power Crypto Show. They launched an episode today. So if you want to find a cool movie to watch, I recommend that.
Did anybody? Yeah, definitely. People check that out. Did anybody see the Coinbase documentary that came out this?
I watched parts of it. It's super boring. Well,
it is.
I mean, if you want to watch,
terrible.
Yeah.
If you want to watch people talking, like, I mean, you could. We're here, man. What? I don't understand. It's just like it interviews with people telling you about things that happened.
I watched your movie review of the movie.
Yeah. I did an episode about it.
I thought that was great. I was like, you know, we should do more things like that where we're kind of like reviewing crypto movies and docs and stuff. I thought that was a really good video.
Oh, thanks.
What I'm excited about the Richard documentary is that I think that because he himself has been somewhat of a profit mentality, right? In predicting what's going to go wrong and where you shouldn't kind of put your value or your time or your efforts. I'm excited for that. If that does come out at the right time, you know, as this real narrative about decentralization takes off, this is speaking directly into that. So that could be, you know, especially if it's out on a network where even a lot of those new folks coming into crypto in general, who aren't quite as experienced, who are just learning a few of the buzzwords of the moment, which probably will be, you know, decentralization because of all the shenanigans we've seen with centralized exchanges. If this comes out and it's a lot of him, you know, talking about all of those things, that's going to be powerful too. I think that, you know, that, and I'm assuming that, you know, that's an ethos of him, right? You know, that's the reason why we're all kind of gung ho about this whole ecosystem. It could accidentally be perfect timing. Everything's aligning, it seems.
That's how I feel about it too. Like I said, I cannot wait. And there's some awesome lines in it. I'm not going to ruin anything, but like there's some awesome lines in it where like he hits, you know, that like some of those points like right on the head, and not just with like, you know, typical Richard greatest hits kind of stuff. This is like was tailored, like happened organically in the scenes that were happening. You know, that were just awesome lines that you're just like, yeah, that's it. That's it right there. You know, so there's a few of those that I really am stoked for everyone to see.
So Richard's a natural movie star, is what you're saying.
I mean, he did a great job. And you know, the movie does like it charts a lot of different stuff. So like, I mean, it's he's in it. I'm in it. RG's in it. There's several characters in it, and they fought and like, but it's not all Richard. You know, it's a fair assessment on both sides. There's parts of it that Hexicans are going to be like, "Whoa, I don't like this," and like that's good. That's part of that's what it's all about. Is it's supposed to like make everyone feel each way. You know. And it gives a fair shake to all perspectives. So
cool.
Super excited to see it.
So I'm not sure when Pulse Chain will actually launch, but I'm just gonna say in the year 2024, we are gonna have so many things lined up and happening. Honestly, I think it's going to be very hard not to be bullish. I feel like we're going to have a huge news event of something like almost every month, you know, like 1 month we'll have the highest of stakes. The next month we're going to have, you know, a bank listing, you know, HEX for sale through fiat, you know, like you, you know, and then we're just going to have another thing like I think continuously starting probably 6 months to a year from now and just rolling out.
Yeah, I mean, that does equate with the market cycles. Like, you know, I think this year, you know, whatever we get, wherever we go this year could be great. But I mean, like I've like the cycles in the past, it's been a choppy year. After the year of down, we have a year of
up, sideways,
Sideways.
sideways.
Remember the bulls take the stairs up and the bears take the elevator down.
Yeah. Totally true.
Come back, Big K.
Yeah.
Memes.
So yeah.
There he is. Back.
I mean, it comes with living in an island. You know, sometimes the internet works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the power works, sometimes it doesn't.
Island life.
I think you're right, though. I think a lot of catalysts that are going to come up just naturally, as well as kind of intra ecosystem. It's exciting, you know. And I can't help but think that if this does, you know, end up being picked up and launched after, you know, or even a couple of months after we actually launch mainnet, then that could counteract any particular dips in the future as well, and we can just keep seeing that. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly. I think that, you know, we're going to look back maybe and see a slightly different story with Pulse Chain and Pulse X. I think that there's too many things aligning. It's strange. It's almost too strange. I'm almost expecting a Black Swan event to come out of the woodwork and just just dash all our hopes, but I don't see it happening. I think there are too many
World War
Mm.
III. That's the only Black Swan is World War III breaking out.
Yeah. Even that has, like, you know, it's showing that, you know, a lot of the aid, right, that's giving out to Ukraine, it's all being done through USDC now, right? Just because it's easier. So that's kind of teaching that, you know, the US in particular should be jumping on all things crypto going forward. You know, I think that all of this is a lot, even the regulations coming down the pike and all of that stuff, it's all a good thing. It just means that we're going to be a little bit more structured maybe. But if we're able to jump on this as a country, let alone, you know, the rest of the countries who seem to be a little bit more forward than us with accepting, you know, China, you know, all the games that they're playing and they having that digital yuan or whatever it is. All of this just seems that, you know, even outside the US, we're going to get a lot of adoption because it's going to be seen as a great avenue for people to start
buying into. And then, almost if the US gets on board too, it's just so much organic buying pressure coming into the market as well. It's almost like we don't have to try hard to even be the best layer one out there or the best DEX out there. We just need to be a good one. But I think we're aiming way past that. So I certainly wouldn't be surprised if we come out of the gates, we shoot up, and then as we start to taper off, bull market full kind of comes into swing, and we start just moving on up even more so. We consolidate a little bit, and then everyone starts getting excited again because now it's they want to jump back in at what essentially could be the start of another months and years of some big movement. So if you can't tell, I'm super bullish.
Yeah, all we need to be is a good layer one, but we're gonna be like the greatest layer one.
No doubt. No doubt.
So I've got this list of like prophecies about Pulse Chain, and I probably could have saved it for like a separate episode, but we had 4,900 people watch the show last week, so I figure like might as well do it here if you guys want. So
It's a lot of people.
I kind of broke it down into like 3 different categories. So, and then I just kind of organized a few different points under each. So Pulse Chain is the coin Pulse is designed to massively reward the patient on a historic magnitude. So if you think about when you decide to lock up all your Pulse as a validator, who do you think is going to be locking up a higher percentage of the tokens? Do you think it'll be the hexagons who bought into Pulse Chain, or do you think it'll be people in Ethereum? I think that there's going to be more locking up happening on Pulse Chain than there is on Ethereum. I think those are going to be really fun metrics to look at. And, there's no guarantee that Shanghai is going to get instantly integrated with Pulse Chain. And that could be any delay in Shanghai, either with Ethereum releasing it or with us integrating it. That could be a huge pumpamental that you can lock, but you can't unlock immediately. So does that make sense? That that the unlocking is maybe there's some bearishness around that. But the fact that
it's all super interesting. I'm sorry, I just thought about that too.
Yeah.
You're right about that. It's because so in the Shanghai update, it's a delayed release. So like 13, I believe, % of Ethereum is locked up in that in Shanghai or in the in validating, but you can't get it all out at once. So like there's a certain amount, I think 40,000 Ethereum or so 30,000, something like that, daily that will be able to be withdrawn. So like it will take, if everybody who is a validator starts withdrawing as soon as they can, I think it would take something like 9 months or something like that for it to all actually be released. So like it won't be on day, like you can't, like everyone's like, oh, it's gonna be this giant dump mental 10% of the Ethereum supply is going to be available for selling that hasn't been, and you're like, kind of, but it's really going to be like a slow burn over time. So like if Pulse Chain just straight up integrates the Shanghai fork as is, then it would be a similar situation where those that staked or that validated first wouldn't be able to pull out the earliest, and it would be on a delayed schedule. So like I wonder how that all plays out. I'm not saying that it is either way. And like you said, I do believe the hexagons are, if they're going to be validators, they're probably in it for a much longer haul than most people are. They've already waited a couple of years. I mean, what's a couple more? So like I do, think about all that, but I just wonder how that, like, we're a game theory gang. So I wonder how that game theory of things all, how that's going to all filter out in the end. Or if there'll be changes to the update that, like when the Pulse devs push it, they push some changes so that's not a thing. I don't know.
And so this is something that can reward the patient. Another thing that rewards the patient could be this other pumpamental. So will the RH wallet sacrifice accept PLS? Will that end up removing a bunch of the supply off the market at just the right time, right? So that's another thing. Nobody's talking about this, but that's, it's kind of easy to see how it plays out. What I see is a very, very bullish situation. Now, there's no guarantees there, but it's interesting game theory. And then, then there's this imbalance in the number of players who sacrifice for Pulse X versus Pulse Chain. And so if people who want to balance out their portfolios, or maybe there's fewer people who sacrifice for Pulse Chain, so there's more people that might want to balance out their portfolio and be able to have both. Then and remember, a lot of people who sacrifice for Pulse, on the other hand, didn't know that there was a Pulse X sacrifice around the corner, and so a lot of people went hard for Pulse and maybe didn't have as much to go in to Pulse X, and so that could end up balancing itself out. But even with just the network participant model of valuing that, I think that'll be really interesting. And then of course any swap volume is going to directly cause buy pressure on PLSX, which is kind of a form of yield in the sense that there's that buy and burn happening. So that'll be interesting.
It's super interesting.
Another one might be that, there's a lot of people that are completely staked out or smurfed out, and they didn't get to put in as much into the sacrifices that they wanted. Maybe they only had a couple $100 left over from their paychecks when the sacrifices were going on. And so
or as those sacrifices went on a couple of weeks or however long, they figured that they probably get better rates once it stopped, maybe, and then it launches. They'll probably get in at a better rate than maybe the last day of sacrifice. There's so many different mindsets going into this. I think those, I didn't really think of those either, but yeah.
To add on to that, Ben, I'm not going to say any names, but I remember we had a very prominent Hexagon during the first sacrifice, and they basically Hex went up to like 16 cents, and then it started dropping down to like 8 cents. And I remember them being like, no, I'm waiting for this to like go way up, because that's when I'm going to put in my capital. And it kind of didn't really. Then the sacrifice ended, and like Hex was at like, maybe like 8 or 9, 10 cents. And then after the sacrifice, it shot up really high. So I know.
Why are you doxing me, Bruce? I don't know.
I just feel like I remember people waiting. They're like, I'm gonna wait. I'm waiting for a better price. I'm waiting for a higher Hex price before I sacrifice.
DCA sets you free, man.
Yeah.
With some of that.
So
yeah. So now the second category of prophecies I've got here has to do with ETH congestion. So I think that congestion on the Ethereum network could drive Pulse adoption, which maybe could drive more ETH congestion, or maybe not. But if the only on-ramp, let's say, is through ETH, then maybe there could be some congestion there. Really, what I'm trying to say is that, look, ETH 2.0 has never been tested in a bull market. And I think that it's really, really, really going to have high gas. Like, I think the gas prices that we saw in the last cycle are nothing compared to what we're going to see. And I don't think that necessarily causes ETH to get abandoned, because some people like paying more for things. And, when the fees go up really high, it kind of traps some people into their trades. And that's kind of an interesting situation where, people, even to move an NFT or sell an NFT or add liquidity or get out of this shitcoin that you bought into, like, it has a way, it's becomes $300 to swap last bull cycle. Well, this coming bull cycle, is it going to be $900 to swap? And maybe the coin that dropped in value 50%, maybe you don't end up selling that because you're kind of trapped in your trade. So so I think that the ETH will not necessarily get abandoned due to high fees, but that this will drive more participants into a Pulse chain, and and then the potential for adoption on Pulse is ultimately greater than on ETH in that type of an environment. But it's unclear how the market will value this. I think Ethereum has been struggling with do they want to be a decentralized world computer, or do they want to be a store of value? And so we're going to see that play out in the next cycle.
He's obviously trying to switch it to a store of value by having the burning mechanism.
True. Yeah.
That's going to be so interesting to see play out. I mean, we've never seen that. It's the tokenomics are just built to pump, right? We thought HEX was built to pump, and it was, and it is. But I just watching this play out, I think in hindsight, it's going to be a no-brainer. We start looking at it a year or two from now, and we're still going to be that's when we're going to see a lot of people aping in, just because they've got massive green candles, and we're heading towards all-time highs all around the board. And yeah, I'm pumped.
Oh yeah, and I mean, people forget when we were talking about the sacrifice stuff too, about whether people who got in when and what. They're like, I mean, when you look at the numbers on it, it's there was a chart I saw of like numbers of dollars per wallet put in, and almost half the wallets in both sacrifices that put in any cash was less than a couple $100. There's a lot of small wallets, so like the amount of actual big player money that was put in, we're talking what, 20,000 addresses in the one and maybe 40,000 in the other. People put in like $1,000, like actual cash. I mean,
yeah.
At that level.
That's what the breakdown was. That's interesting.
Well,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I have friends that keep contacting me looking to procure Pulse, right? And I'm like, it's not available, right? But they're trying to find people that'll promise to give them their Pulse after launch, because there's going to be a lot of FOMO with it.
I have Pulse for sale, $10 each. Contact me.
I'll take one.
Okay,
one.
After launch. I mean, after launch. It's not currently.
Hey, and Maddie, your prediction may come true on gas prices. I think maybe we'll see something incredible like $500 transaction fees. Not for N6, but I mean for simple stuff. I've been, I'm listening. I'm not telling people to invest in ETH, but I've been DCAing in ETH for months. So
that's another thing too. I mean, I know that obviously we're very bullish on this ecosystem, but I think that's another thing. I mean, for a lot of the conservative investors out there, certainly folks who are newer to crypto maybe and are looking for that kind of longer tenured option, we were all probably anticipating maybe a 5 to a 10x on ETH, right? Going into this next bull cycle, just due to volume alone. But now with a lot of this kind of potential institution money on the horizon coming in a much greater force, that could still be a good investment for anyone who's very, very conservative. I think Pulse Chain and Pulse X are going to be monumentally better. But if you wanted to feel kind of relatively safe in putting some money somewhere, ETH may not be a bad option, But I do think it is interesting thinking about just, what you said, Maddie, with fees going up dramatically because we're seeing so much volume coming into the market. Because I think that a lot of folks don't understand the increase that we're probably going to see in just money in general, users in general. I think that it doesn't matter if we've forked and we're lowering fees right now. We're still going to, we're going to unfortunately see the effects of all of this new stuff coming in, all this new traffic coming in those fees when the time comes. But it all equates out to a positive, I think, for everyone. But
there's a data point that's I think really relevant here that a lot of people missed, is this thing called the Blur airdrop. And the Blur airdrop was a vampire attack on OpenSea, offering basically people a platform to trade their NFTs with 0 platform fees for a limited time, or I'm not exactly sure how it worked. Truth is, I didn't look into it that much, but the reason I know about it is because the gas fees spiked up really high a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. they spiked up to 200, 300 Gwei at some point, maybe even higher, just from a single, maybe $1 billion market cap a coin getting generated that airdropped, to just one subset of Ethereum users who are NFT users. And so I really think Pulse Chain being a much broader airdrop, and I think that again, that's a good data point. The Blur airdrop showed that it created all this activity on chain and brought a lot of interest. And so I think when Pulse Chain launches, I think that any kind of spike in gas fees will leave everybody questioning, why did this happen? And then they'll go investigate it, and they'll start playing with their free copies. Now the third prophecy, the third and final prophecy I have for tonight has to do with this idea that there may be a new narrative coming that is, how can you get like multi-yield? I'm not really sure what to call it, but it's you're locking and you're earning. And we've kind of already seen this before, but I made a list. I wanted to make a list of like, what are all the ways that somebody might end up earning yield when it comes to Pulse Chain or kind of our ecosystem. And I kind of want to preface it by going back to something that Johnny Chaos said. And I can't remember which stream it was, but I know a lot of people have been watching Ben and Johnny Chaos and Access Live and everybody really present some really great ideas. And so one of the ideas that I think Johnny was presenting is that he predicts that at some point the lines may become blurred between your ability to swap for something else to earn yield on everything, perhaps multiple forms at a time. So let me break that down. So like basically what Johnny was saying is that as a casual crypto user, you might not really draw a distinction between like, oh, I got a free airdrop on Pulse Chain and I can take that and swap it for HEX, and now I can earn yield by locking that. Or I can liquidity farm with my free copy and I can be earning yield that then I can use to buy something. That there might be a blurring of the lines between kind of even where is the yield coming from. People might not care as long as and we kind of see that if you look at all the failures in crypto. People didn't really know or care like where the yield was coming from in Celsius and BlockFi and BitConnect and like all these things. Yeah. The list that I have here of where might people get yield. So you can liquidity provide with your free airdrop copy. So for example, you take your eShib and you wrap it on Pulse, and that's paired with your free SHIB copy on Pulse, whatever those are supposed to be called. I'm sorry for the lack of nomenclature there, but basically you're pairing your free copy. That's one. Another one is you become a Pulse validator, and to do that you need like $2,000 worth of Pulse sacrifice. Maybe it's $2,300 worth of sacrifice. It depends kind of what rate you got, but somewhere around $2,000. And maybe if you sacrifice more than $2,000 worth, maybe you end up running multiple validators. But the same amount of free airdrop to ETH holders would mean that you'd have to have $2 billion of Ethereum, I think, in order to get the amount of Pulse you need to become a validator. So because you're diluted by like 1 million X. So I think I did the math right there. So being a Pulse validator, like that is going to be one way that people earn yield. Of course, time locking native HEX is going to be a way. Or when people use my product, Time Pays Me, to pay their future self, they might use something like Maximus Decimus as their substitute for TShares that are native, and that allows you to like stream your earnings to yourself over time and get paid weekly from that. Another way that people might earn yield is through like liquid loans and similar borrowing protocols where people are borrowing against their Pulse and PulseX because it has certain tax advantages maybe for them, or just because they like the fact that they don't have to sell. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that myself. Some of these strategies are have a lot of risk. One additional way that people earn yield, and we don't usually think of this as earning yield, but airdrops. Airdrops have been massive. I have a bunch of onboards who have gotten airdropped more value than the amount that they locked of HEX. Okay. Wow. There have been with Hedron and Pulse Dogecoin, with those two, Uniswap. I mean, there are people who locked $200, $100, $1,000 worth of HEX, and the amount that they got airdropped is more than that. So that we can't forget that airdrops end up being, in some cases, a huge portion of the amount of yield that somebody ends up taking out of crypto, or leaving in or whatever. And so that, I mean, and it's like I've got a couple on boards who I gave them $20 worth of ETH and said swap this for HEX. They did it on Uniswap, following my directions before the Uniswap airdrop. They got a $1,200 Uniswap airdrop, and we swapped that for HEX, staked it 10 years, and they're sitting on 1.5 million HEX from that single airdrop that is going to keep growing over time. And then they got airdrops off that are like worth $5,000 now. So it's like this. It's really incredible what the airdrops can do. Another form of yield, deflation, buying and burning PulseX is something that people might consider yield. And then finally, the RH wallet may have some stuff built into it, like MetaMask does, to generate a fee, basically to generate income from a fee happening. So whether it's buy and burn or whatever it is, that'll also be an exciting form of yield, I predict. So there you have it.
For sure.
That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of way to make money.
I like it. I was just doing some quick maths in my head, and unless I'm mistaken, when I originally made my staking ladder, I put in a certain amount of money. I put in a principal, right? And I think at today's prices of Hedron, that you get just from natively making a HEX stake, if my math is correctly, I think I'm gonna earn back 100% of my principal. Yeah. After 6 months at today's prices.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, you just got back all of your principal from Hedron, in 6 months. Yeah. It's like, wow. I just kind of like did that math just now as you were talking. I'm like, I never realized that until just now, really.
Go Bruce.
That's kind of
and that puts people in a position where maybe they don't have to sell as much HEX, or they could accumulate more HEX. I mean, that's been my play on Hedron, has been I don't have to sell as much HEX that comes out of my yearly stakes, and I can buy more HEX.
Another thing about the Hedron too is I always look at it like, this is my gas fee, like I can use this to pay for my gas to end my stakes.
Fair. Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it too. Yeah. I love that. And the best thing is that, price right now compared to even with HEX, where I think it's going to go, it's that all of that value is going to be escalated, right? So it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I think a lot of these opportunities too come more from an integrated system like this as well, where it's like, you have all these things operating. It's a little bit more trust in the system too. So all of these derivative plays, especially where, value is almost, and Johnny Case was talking a lot about that liquidity bonding and potentially what kind of effect that could have on the whole ecosystem too. So I think that there's a good chance that all of these different value all these different forms of value coming from each of these tokens could all kind of help each other, facilitate the rise in price and value and all of that good stuff too. So it's all very, very exciting, honestly.
Also, Power City, they're going to have like an amplifier type project that's going to help create, passive income and in one way or another. And there's also the Tetra project that's kind of doing something similar. So those are going to be also further ways to enhance your money.
Yeah, so many things happening.
It's going to be insane. It's going to be really insane once this launches and we have a way to articulate what this is doing to the no coiners to get them on board. This is a game changer.
Fiat on ramps going to affect all of that too. I think as soon as we have some solid fiat on ramps as well, that's going to.
It's like look in the direction of those the Coast 0x Coast dudes. They look like they're working on that the 0x weight people. They seem like they've been putting out announcements of all the different countries they've been working on regulatory stuff to have a relatively trustless swappable exchange thing they're doing that they're for onboarding. That's cool stuff too. Yeah. It's really I'm almost scared about once it's out because like right now I can direct my focus and I can talk about what I know. And there's this, I know like this ecosystem very well because there's HEX, and at the moment there's a few other hadrons and some other things, but like it's HEX centric, Whereas after Pulse comes out, like, man, it's a good thing we have so many streamers because we need everybody. Because like there's gonna be so many angles to talk about, and so many different projects, and so many different things that can be done. It's gonna be wild. I mean, it is really gonna be overwhelming.
And there's going to be so many scams out there, guys.
Yes, that is true.
Careful. What contracts
I recommend people go and check out that Pulse Police chat if you're interested in any of the projects that are on it. They do a pretty good job at vetting some of this stuff for a decentralized community. We have some good help.
Yeah, so Big K, that's like a call to action to everybody who sees this, right? Because like if you can just imagine, forget about Pulse Chain launch for a moment. Just imagine that HEX goes as mainstream as we think it can, and we end up with the onboarding, etc. To be able to get in through fiat, and you see some sort of like SHIB-like event. We are going to be drowning in people in terms of looking for content, needing to be, and maybe it's not necessarily our responsibility, but we take it that way to educate. There's just going to be so much happening. It's just going to be like it'll be insane.
Oh yeah,
not our responsibility.
Because if you go in those, if you go in those communities, those other ones like the 1 million+ user communities that are out there, there's a lot of Wenmunser, and there's just a lot of lack of awareness of what's going on, how to not get scammed, how to be careful with their funds, how to vet anything properly. So like, yeah, that's definitely will matter, having some good voices in the community speaking up.
I think also having a community based around an ethos that was started around security, anonymity, ownership, all of those things are like key kind of components of this whole thing. So that definitely helps kind of set a tone for a bit more of a transparent or a bit more of a trusted environment, right?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know of other cryptos that have a 24-hour voice chat that's been going for 13 months straight, and that I would trust to point people to, except HEX does have that, and it's called HEX All Day on Twitter. And the people who run that, are I think highly trusted members of the community, and so to be able to send people there. I've got the link in the YouTube description here, and yeah, to be able to send people there, and then they they can ask any question they want.
Well, guys,
Um,
it has been
so
a pleasure. I'm going to have to love and leave everyone now.
I was
It's getting late
I was
here.
gonna say I have
Me
actually
too.
I grabbed a computer to this other house that I'm at right now, and I'm on that, and it is 2% battery right now. So we went from 100% to 2% on this stream. So
You're also on
I was like, there's
2%
no
internet.
way I'm gonna use this whole battery up. Well, we have, gentlemen. So I don't think I've got hitting it, but a couple minutes here left.
Well, thank you guys so much for
night.
coming on. It's been a blast talking to you guys.
Absolutely.
this is tons of
totally
fun.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
great to be on with you, Ben. I'm stoked to see more of your stuff too, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm a fan of everyone here, so I'm definitely open to catching up whenever you guys are available as well. So please keep me in the loop because I loved it.
Yeah, Ben, you've been
Yes.
putting out really great content. I think you're a new and upcoming Hexagon, and I appreciate everything that you're putting out there. It's like,
Yeah,
thank you for
your
streaming.
perspective on stuff is super awesome, man. It's good to have you here.
You also have
No,
like one of the
appreciate
coolest names ever, too.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
I told him.
Right.
I told him it reminds me of Street Fighter, man.
It reminds me of Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
That's
Street
awesome.
Fighter.
Nick
Let's
Cage.
go.
Everybody go follow these guys. I've got their links in the description below, so make sure you follow Ben and Big Kurkowski. Thanks, guys, for coming on. You rock.
Awesome.
Thank you, Maddie. Appreciate it.
See you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Later,
See ya.
gentlemen.
All right. So now, you guys usually bring something really special to the stream each week. Brisology with his news stories, and ChrispyMan with a new take on Hex. I know we've already been going for 2.5 hours. Do you guys have anything else that you want to present this time?
I was just kind of thinking about all the updates that we got today. It's been a little bit much to really process everything that Richard is putting out there. The only other things that I could really think about was the nomenclature changes from staking to mining to smurfing to whatever.
Where did the smurfing thing come from?
The first time I saw it was on the Hex Whalebot Twitter account. And
did Hexologists come up with that, or did somebody else come up with the joke?
I don't know, but I saw it on the Hex Whalebot where every time someone staked a large amount of Hex, he would just put this amount of Hex was smurfed.
Yes.
And for some reason, I don't know why, but I really like that term. I think it's so freaking funny for some reason. It's almost like a it's not like pulse chain where it's like, what does pulse mean? Oh my god, why did I learn about that? Smurf seems a lot more innocent, I guess, a lot more PG rated. It's just like it's Smurfed. But other than that, I'm kind of I kind of brought my stuff to the table today.
Yeah, that's great. Another random point. Everybody should go visit hexpomiami.com and get your ticket for the second Mass Hex meetup. And this year we will be merge mining at the Bitcoin conference. And so to celebrate that, we had these other guys who are so serious and respected in the community on the stream earlier. So I didn't want to break this out, but I've got I got something here.
You want to break it out? I had a quick update.
That's why I'm here to lower the seriousness.
Yeah.
Of
so basically the SEC can't say shit, because we're not giving real financial advice because we're not taking ourselves seriously. So that's why I got these props.
Wow,
I like it.
Mining, we're
That's a nice
publishing.
pick.
Who knows?
That's a nice pick.
Maddie, that's not how you mine Hex.
Oh,
It's
my gosh.
not. I actually, when I ran into like an old friend over the weekend around the same time that Richard was, proposing the changes in the wording, who is an actual miner, and had told him about Hex. He wants to get in, give it a try and that sort of thing. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Nice.
Love it.
on board all types.
I threw
I'm
something up
telling
on
you
this-
guys, when Pulse Chain launches, we have such a community building so many things. I mean, there's just so many projects coming out. I'm telling you, I feel so freaking bullish that after Pulse Chain launches, we're gonna have month after month of like a new project here, a new pumpamental there, this building here, this building there. It's gonna be awesome.
For like 14 months straight.
Yeah. And then there's gonna be a bull run in the middle of
Yeah.
all that. Dude, I don't think you guys are gonna be able to handle the face melting gains that we may potentially see.
I don't think so either.
I think it's
I know I'm not going to be able to handle it. That's why I literally had to build a tool to time lock my pulse chain and pulse X.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it. Let's do it.
yeah, my body is ready.
So, Maddie, I threw that one thing to show. That we,
Yeah,
it'll
let's take a
take
look.
just maybe 3 minutes and we'll go through it. But go pretty quick with it. So you guys remember KSB TV nicely invited me to work with them on the Power TShares presentation for the conference. So I did a series of update, streams today. So I have an update stream. So if anybody wants to see it, they go look at the long form. But the long and the short of it was we had looked at 3 different people taking on mining with different specs. One that was going to try to beat the system by serial mining, another that was going to go out 15 years. And then because we did an update for 2023, we added a new person C to start in 2023. And the reason I went back and did a recap on this was the question keeps coming up about APY and people not understanding where the APY comes from, the numbers that are used. And so the very first thing I'd say is remember that when people start quoting this average APY in the system, it is of all open stakes. It is of all open stakes, right? And then the other thing to show with this is really how the payouts actually get accomplished, or what we forecast to be the payouts, and what the APY is. And this was one of the big takeaways at the the conference as well. When you looked at the 2 different people, person A and person B, you can clearly see that person A, this is the person that tries to stake for a year and then restake and restake, they're going down. They're going down, right?
Wow, look at that.
And APY, that's the forecast, right? While surprisingly, maybe for many people, the person who staked out long is going up the whole time. Wish I had a highlighter to go up better than this stupid pen. But
Yeah.
you see what I'm getting at here with it going up?
Yes.
And even the person who came in 2 years later, yes, their APY starts at a lower number, but they can look forward to assuming the system continues to work the way it has, and the forecast is correct, the TShares go down and payout goes up, and there's some combination. They will actually see their APY float upwards over time.
Yeah.
And so that's
Wow.
really the point that I wanted to make, was that because I think some of us forget this, right? That when you actually look at the APY charts for these 3 people, You can clearly see that the forecast for A is to drop over time, all the way down to 3%. Somewhere in
Wow.
that 4%, while the whole time the longer stakers are going up. Now, that doesn't mean to suggest that everybody should be Quattro Cinco all the time for everything. That's not what I'm saying. We use the most extreme example of Quattro Cinco, right, on the end. But it does reinforce the idea that, go back and look at ladders. So if you've already bought into the idea that you're going to mine HEX and that you're going to be part of locking your HEX up for a period of time, you get a tremendous value out of multiple years, if that's your time frame, versus doing one for 30 days or one for a month, 2 months, or one for a year, that type of thing. So that's the gist of it. So I got some pretty good videos out on the HEXFire YouTube today, and trying all these new.
That's so awesome.
News
Yeah, I love how
methods, so you can
clear
check
this
it out.
is.
Yeah. So go check it out. And then not only should you click like, subscribe, bell button all here, you should also go to mine and like and subscribe.
Yeah.
So I'm getting up there. I'm getting close to, I'm over 800 people now, subscribers. I'm still working on that 1,000.
Well, if everybody here just clicked on the link below to go to ChrispyMan's channel and subscribe, he'd get over 1,000 subscribers, and that's the point at which he can monetize. So
That's
That's a
us
really
out.
cool chart, Crispy. I like that.
Yeah, this one's powerful, Bruce, right?
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I look at this stuff a lot too much. I look at too much of this information all the time, and like, if you asked me in advance, I wouldn't have told you that it floats up. I mean, it's just so nonsensical that if you stake in my head, I understand it, but when I'm thinking about it, if you said, oh yeah, my interest goes up, or my yield percentage goes up over time, you'd be like, what are you talking about? How could that even be possible? Anyways, it's part of that reinforcing T-shirt thing, right? I mean, it's T-shirts. T-shirts, baby.
The magic of T-shirts.
It is. It's the strength.
Love it.
is
Yeah.
the strength.
The staking ladder was more powerful than I realized when I first made mine. I mean, yeah, I made mine when there wasn't even a hedron around. So it's like, there's a lot of hidden benefits.
Absolutely, man.
People during the stream keep saying new Richard update, but
Yeah, I
oh,
just
here
saw
this
a
time it's true. 4 minutes ago, and that's probably why we got the bump in viewership of an extra 20 people all of a sudden. People want to know about the update from Richard. He said he posted underneath his tweet from 7 hours ago. It's funny, somebody earlier in the chat predicted that he would do that. Richard says, nice. Looks like the peering bug is already dead. Look at all these beautiful private testnet nodes in the green. Just waiting on those Aragon nodes to sync up so that they can be added, which then allows the explorers to operate, the block explorers. And it looks like he's then tweeted again 2 minutes ago. Yeah, and notice that 10-second block time. Ethereum mainnet is 20% slower at 12-second blocks. Wow. So we keep getting more and more fine-tuned updates, don't we?
20% slower. Yeah, it's 2 seconds slower.
Yeah, the updates are coming hard. Hey, man, I hope V3 goes fast. I hope May is great for Pulse.
Well, yeah, it would be really cool to have that by the time we do this meetup in Miami and yeah, fulfill the prophecy of May being the launch date.
That would be
That'd be
awesome.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it'd be pretty funny. Of course, I was thinking 2 minutes ago, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
But I can hang.
Hmm.
All right, dude. You have anything you want me to show you? I'll just drop this. I think we're.
Yeah,
I just want to
that's
say,
great.
everyone check out that live stream from ChrispyMan earlier. He did a video earlier today about some of this stuff, and it's a good video.
Oh,
It's
did you
only like
watch?
6 minutes long. Yeah.
Did you watch that, Chris? Oh, it's my new technique, right? So most people don't like to watch
The
long videos.
nuggets.
Yeah. So I not only did I do an hour and 20-minute video, like going way into detail and answering questions, I did the 6-minute snippet, and I did my 60-second short. How about that?
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
It's
good
great.
job.
Yeah, I already decided it's too much work. But it's a lot of work to try to produce all those. I was like, man, I need to figure this out, because I'm using different programs to do different stuff to create this stupid things. Took me a while to ask the right people, because that's really what ended up happening, how to do the things, right?
Yeah. Good work. Yeah, for sure. And anybody who wants to share their tips on how they get stuff like that done can go to Telegram, and Hex YouTube is the place where you can go comment and let other people know how to get started streaming or how to perfect any aspect that you've figured out. That'd be super helpful. So yeah, this is wow, what an exciting week that we've had here with Hex and Pulse Chain, and
Feels like
Richard
almost
Hart.
every week has been like kind
Progressive.
of crazy, right?
Yeah.
I feel like every time I come onto your show, it's like we had like just like a major update, or something big was going on, or Hex went up 350%.
Well, Bruce, this must have been what it was like for these guys on the run-up, right? They must have been feeling that on the show, because that's how it is in the bullish areas, right? I mean, it's just like up, up, up. There's just so much going on. That's what I mean.
Yeah. All right. Hex Force 1 subscribed to ChrispyMan. Well done.
Sick avatar, Hex Force 1. Love it.
That's a good one.
Everybody else get over there.
I made that, if anyone doesn't know.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Oh, did you? All right. Well, you're doing some pretty good art stuff, huh? I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, the Mid-Journey stuff has been really fun.
Nice.
Sweet. Hey, thanks everybody for going over there. I see that the count went up, so thank you for
All right.
hitting that like and subscribe.
Let me see. I want to drop the link to that here. It's taking me a second to find it. Here we go.
Oh, you want me to send it to you?
I got it. All right.
Woohoo, Matt, you're the man. Thanks.
Cool.
Awesome.
And
Well,
the only other thing I would say is, shameless plug is, like I said, I did a video that launched earlier today with the Green Day Power Crypto guys, where we did the movie draft on financial movies, and that was a lot of fun. So if you guys want to go check out some movies that I think are interesting, go check that out. I think I just dropped the link inside the chat room.
Oh, good. Yes, thank you. I was trying to find it.
Go check it out.
Yeah, and so maybe really quickly as we wrap up the show here, we could just say, just yell out some people. Who do you watch in Hex these days? Like, who are you watching? So I watch a lot of Hex streamers. Hexologist has come back into the mix. Access Alive, Crypto 7. You got Furu Finance and Ben Dubard. You got Randy Hilarski. You got
Cabana
the
Crypto.
Cabana. That's the one I was going to say next. Who
Your
else do you
friend
guys have?
Somi.
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
Good stuff is
I would shout out because I'm watching all those guys and listening to them all. So it's kind of like a repeat. But Somi and Seven are the two
Awesome.
latest finds that I'm.
Axis Alive.
Oh, yeah, Axis
He's the man.
man.
He's in the chat. Look at that. He appeared.
He might be here. I don't. I don't think that's him. That's not really.
Another one
Really?
is Broke
Joke.
Boy Crypto.
It looks like him.
Ewok are really good.
Yeah.
Looks like him.
And then what else we got? How many people mentioned Hex in the past couple of days on major channels? So you had Ivan on Tech mentioning Hex. You had Crypto Man Rand today, apparently mentioned Hex.
Yeah,
BitBoy got asked about it last week.
I think did Richard say something about going back on banter?
Yeah,
I saw something about that, but I
saw a
didn't see
tweet
it
saying
directly.
it, but well, it'll come eventually. These guys will be begging for it.
That's right.
Someone else had just mentioned this, and I was looking at ATX Crypto. That guy is also really good.
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying his content. Oh, Hex is alive. Thank you. Thank you.
Dollar Cost Crypto, of course. He's been putting out some good Hex content recently. I mean, there's a ton more people I'd probably think of. Who else has been streaming a lot? There's so many people who are putting out great content.
Furu
really
Finance.
Yeah.
Is he still streaming every day?
Oh yeah. You got to be careful with him though. He wants to pin you down like a journalist. Exactly what day and time do you say Pulse Chain will launch? It's okay. It's good. It's good for.
That's right.
It's good for it. But he's one of the guys behind the shorts, right?
Yes.
Pushing, as you know, because he was on the show a few weeks ago. So good kid, good guy.
And
Fashion Coder's been putting out content too. I see.
And also all of our Discourse Syndicate guys and all their different shows, Wake Up Hex, and
I was on
Asians.
I was on What the Hex last week.
What's that?
What the Hex?
That's Papa Boner's show.
The Papa Boner.
Really?
Boner and and DJ Crypto.
I'll have to check that out.
I was on there, so I was doing talking about some different things, and it was good. Yeah, the issues I think for everybody, it's going to be difficult to be plugged into everybody all the time. That's one of the things about the shorts that I do.
It's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, it is. Well, here's the thing: is there are plenty of consumers, man. That's the thing. There are a lot of consumers. Meaning, there's not any one person can't watch all the streams, but I don't think there's enough streams for all the people. That's what I'm trying to say. Because we're that
I would also like to mention my very first Hex stream was December 8th, 2019.
Who was that with?
It was with this Australian bloke. I forget his name. He hasn't been in the community ever since that stream. I don't think he even posted that video.
Was he just a bloke?
What do you mean?
It might have been a man.
I just mean the bloke isn't like a guy. He's just an Australian guy.
Yeah.
But he was really cool. And I really enjoyed talking with him. But I just remember him asking me to go on a Hex stream or to do a stream with him. And I'm like, nah, I don't really want to be a streamer or nothing. And then Hex launched and all of the, guys in crypto that already had like big channels, they just started lying about Hex and Richard Hart. And I was like, and I emailed that guy back. I'm like, you know what? Let's do a crypto show. Let's set set it straight, and then let's do it. And that was on December 8th. And I have that video on my channel still up if anyone wants to go watch that. But yeah.
Oh man, Crypto Coffee was crushing it recently.
Yeah.
He had me laughing out loud like multiple times during his streams.
Dude, he's getting so excited. I forget if it was today or last night, but it was like a 2.5 hour stream.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's not completely out of the question for coffee, but it was a little uncharacteristic. I mean, it was a good one. Yeah, I like that.
You said that happened today, or
that was last night.
I'm beginning to lose hours, so I have no idea when it happened.
Last night. I watched on 2X.
Yeah.
And then RH Max had Aubrey de Grey on yesterday or the day before, and that that even piqued Richard's interest. Aubrey spoke really highly of Richard, and Richard showed that he appreciated that. So that there's that hasn't always been the case, that that those two were shouting each other out as much as they are now. So that's cool. I like that because I really like the longevity research stuff, of course.
But have you also noticed just how much Johnny's been out there?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I tuned in. Like I think he did like a 5-hour stream or something with Founder Finance. I mean, now I'm seeing all the clips come out, but I think Briz, you might have come in right at the same time I did. I was like watching this thing, and I had to go, and it was like 3 hours later, and I go back to YouTube, and it's still playing. And it's live, and I think you came in right after me. You were like, "Oh man, this is part of the replay crew," and we're back.
I remember it was going for a while, and I'm like, man, I don't want to like go in on hour 2 of 3 and then like have to rewind and watch the first 2 hours. I'm like, I'll just watch it all from the beginning. I'm like, oh man, that was like 3-4 hours ago. So I clicked on it, and they were still going. I was like, holy moly, you guys are still streaming.
Yeah, that happened to me too, actually. It wouldn't go back to the beginning to play because it had to like process or something.
Yeah.
And then there were a couple others too. Big Pep and Access Alive streamed together.
And Big Pep and Hexologist streamed together recently too. Some of those guys went down to Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was really cool. Your friend Sami, you guys already said that was definitely. He's been, man. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he puts out so much.
I know, right?
He's like 2 or 3 videos a day.
Yeah, he's cooking though. He keeps. When I'm listening to him though, he's threatening that he's not going to do one every day or every 3 times a day. At least I think it was him that said that. But yet I see them come out. So, but he's really comfortable with the content that he's putting out, so it works,
Yeah.
I love all the content he puts out, because I think about this stuff all week, and I have like a 13-year-old vocabulary, and I can barely get it all out on one episode of Game Theory Gang, and this guy's doing like 6 episodes a day. I'm like, how does he do it?
Kicking the butts.
Well, but he always has something interesting to say and something valuable to add. So I appreciate all the content that everyone puts out. I really do.
Everybody. We all learn from each other.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and just because we don't mention something, it's just not that nobody knows. It's just there's too many people on the list. So don't get offended.
Yeah.
Sandy Beach,
we're always finding new people who are up and coming and who have been around for a long time and just keep putting out gems. So
Sandy Beach is going to start her new channel pretty soon. Come on, Sandy.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard.
We're going to get her to become a full-time streamer.
That'd be great. We have 215 people watching here at the end. Thank you for being here. This was another great stream, almost 3 hours. hit the like and subscribe button. Go to the links in the description below. There's so many good things in there. I've now added my very first referral link for Trezor. So you can go out there and get your brand new Trezor straight from the Trezor.io factory by clicking on the link in the description. This is how I am getting my onboards ready for Pulse Chain and ready for Time Pays Me, is to have better security than ever for people who, you know, have these medium or small amounts of crypto that haven't upgraded their security yet. And Trezor is it's so useful to work with MetaMask, and even if you created your seed phrase in MetaMask, you can migrate that to a Trezor, and that is going to protect you from these futuristic viruses that are out there trying to steal all of your crypto. So definitely check that out in the link below, and get ready for Pulse Chain.
Get ready.
So,
Secure your bags with a Trezor.
DCA your ETH, man.
yes.
DCA.
Yeah, especially if you have long-term stakes. Just think of it
Absolutely.
as like you're buying gas for those.
Yes. Let me see. So I made a few different like thumbnails for this stream, because I didn't know who would be joining us and where the conversation would land by this point in the week. But see the so I guess on the way out I can show you a couple different versions that I had.
All right, let's see.
What do you got?
Until next time, I guess, publish wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Publish wisely. Yes. Publish wisely.
Publish long, publish hard.
Pulse it. Pulse it.